allegiance.
Okay, well, I hope we're live. I'm President.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. If everybody would join me in silencing your cell phones and in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any correspondence this evening?
We do not have any this evening.
Moving on to item B, public comment. Just a reminder for public comment, please speak your name clearly and you are limited to 3 minutes.
Good evening, board members. Melinda Remersma. I would like to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to engage our community in meaningful dialogue regarding the potential transition to a 4-day school week. Providing this survey demonstrated a strong commitment to transparency and valuing the voices of those most impacted by your decisions. I have sent you all the survey results on Sunday, and I hope that you've had a chance to review them. We received an incredible response with over 2,100 participants sharing their perspectives. Just over 60% of the respondents identified as parents, and an additional 20% were students, ensuring that both family and student voices were strongly represented in the data. Even more compelling was that 79% of the respondents indicated that they strongly support or somewhat support the consideration of a 4-day school week, while 15% were not in support. This level of participation and clear trend in support highlights both the community's investment in this decision and their openness to innovative approaches that may benefit students, families, and staff. Additionally, if the board moves forward with restructuring the schools, it seems obvious that we can make the change to the schedules and bus routes all at the same time. I respectfully ask that you take this feedback into careful consideration and continue the conversation by placing this topic on the agenda for further discussion at the next board meeting. Thank you again for your leadership and for listening to the voices of our community.
Thank you.
Hello, board members. I'm Heather Sims. I'm the music teacher at Grass Valley. I don't have anything prepared today, but I just wanted to say thank you for really listening to the public comment that we've had the past couple of board meetings and really taking into consideration some of the research that's been placed out on the possibility of the K-5, K-6 are staying the same. And I really appreciate that you took the public comment, made the committee, and then put it out to the community to be able to give a response. I really appreciate you guys taking that into consideration and really listening, because it makes me feel valued as an employee of this district. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Anais Tomlinson. I am a parent and a substitute teacher for our district. I am here in support of the 4-day school week. If you wouldn't mind putting that on your agenda at another time. I have kids with medical problems. I have medical problems. We live rurally. There is not a lot of healthcare here. There's no ENT. My son's orthodontist is in Reno. So my kids have missed quite a bit of school strictly for healthcare, which is a cost of living in a rural area. So I think this 4-day school week, if it gets put on your agenda, it would help us parents' schedules so that our kids wouldn't miss school. Another thing, I've had 2 teenagers in the school system, both in extracurriculars, one in sports, one in the arts. They have missed tons of school for sports, mostly on Fridays, honestly, and it is really stressful when they have to miss entire days, make it up while they're at their basketball tournaments, and then coming back to school with all that makeup work. If they had Friday to drive down, they wouldn't miss any school. It'd be beneficial, I think, to students and also the staff that has to go and coach those things. Another reason I would in support of a 4-day school week would be there's more opportunity for family bonding and going on trips and stuff like that. My kids have missed countless Fridays to go on a family trip because I don't have family that lives in this town, so I have to go to other states to visit family. Another reason, and it's not the best reason, but other cities in the state like Fallon, Ely, Elko, Battle Mountain, and Lovelock all have a 4-day school week and have shown the benefits from having that. They did state that their kids were just a little bit tired at first, but kids are resilient, as we all know, and they dealt with it really quickly. I think doing it along with the K through 6 or K through 5 change would be just beneficial. Just rip the Band-Aid, do it. My kids had a broken femur, guess what? They are resilient, so it would work out. So yeah, and as a substitute teacher, I just wanted to say that most of the jobs that get posted are on Fridays. And so there would be more consistency, I think, within the class if there was just a Monday through Thursday with just a little bit later exit time for school. So if you could put that on your agenda, that would be really awesome.
I'm Brooke Smith, same thing, parent and substitute teacher in the school. I have 2 kids who have pretty intense eye problems, and our specialists are in Salt Lake, and ever since birth, like, we have missed a lot of school because, you know, and sometimes they say, we'll go on holidays. Well, guess who also doesn't work on holidays? Doctors. And so my kids over the years, for appointments and contacts appointments and surgeries, we've missed a lot of school because our specialists are not here. We can't get care here. And so as a parent, you know, then we have to make up while we were like recovering from eye surgery, you know, and so it would be really nice to have a day where we can go in for orthodontia, go in for eye appointments. We're also big travelers too. And so with my husband, I know a lot of minors have, you know, different schedules. It's not Monday through Friday. And so my husband has every Friday off. And so it's really easy to be like, well, we got straight A's right now. We'll just miss a day. And, you know, and so we have, we've missed a lot of days just so we can go travel the state and, you know, go see family. Because again, yeah, same, we don't have family here. So I just think a 4-day school week would just, mostly for the medical stuff for my family, and I know other people who leave the town to go get medical care, and then we have 1 day, and for teachers, so that they could schedule all of their appointments as a sub. Lots of teachers are because they're going to Reno for a doctor's appointment, so I just think that would be really beneficial to parents and the teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan Huber, and I'm here in support of the 4-day school week, and in hopes to put this on the agenda also. I think a 4-day school week would be great and beneficial to us as parents and to our children. I would love to be able to spend more time with my children, and they talked about like the minor schedules, and I just feel like giving those kids that extra day off would also give them more time to spend with their parents who do work at the mines. It would also make doctor's appointments on Fridays wonderful. We wouldn't have to miss school for those since we do live in a rural setting and having to travel for those. And that's all we got. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm from French Fork Middle School. And I'd like to say what most of the middle schools are thinking about these changes. We already went to elementary school and we're very much enjoying middle school. Our school's not built for little kids, like with our stairs, elevator, our equipment, and our playground. We also get to do fun activities like the UNR basketball game. These things called intramurals at PE. We would have to also miss Survivor Day probably, raising trout, and also at the expenses that it would cost to buy the equipment and change the name French Fork Middle School to French Fork Elementary School would kind of be at our expense.
I'm Leslie Enixon. I'm a 5th grade teacher at French Fork and the District 8 coordinator. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm not here to talk about the 4-day week though. I'm all for that too. I am here to talk on behalf of our
many of our French Forward staff and students. I acknowledge that change is often necessary. It's good for growth. I recognize that decisions like restructuring are complex and often made with long-term goals in mind. However, I'm here tonight to ask that we truly and carefully consider the impact of this particular change on both staff and students. Moving all of our schools to a pre-K through 6 particular structure is not a small adjustment. It's going to be a significant shift that's not going to just impact the 2 schools now, but rather 4. And every staff member and every student in those schools. With staff morale, you know, it's already building a lot of tension within our schools. Everybody's wanting to know what's going to happen, and I get that. But this restructuring is going to require widespread movement of teachers across all 4 schools now, if that is the route we decide to take. For many of us, school is more than just a workplace. It's a community we've invested in for years. I have loved every day I've taught at French Forward Middle School. Loved it. I'm in my 19th year, 9 at French Forward, and it's the best place I've ever worked. We've built relationships with our colleagues, our students, our families there, and we have really worked to contribute to a culture that's unique to our site, just as every other school has. When our stability is disrupted quickly, like this is, without a clear and thoughtful transition plan, I'm worried that it's going to lead to a lot of extra stress and decreased morale. And when teacher morale suffers, ultimately that tends to trickle down to students, unfortunately. My other big concern is the pace of this decision. As it stands, this change feels very rushed. This is a huge undertaking that we're trying to figure out, and I know we need to be expeditious, but it just seems super fast. We live in a culture dominated by instant gratification. I understand that, and we're not immune to those expectations from the community wanting us to make these changes quickly. But something of this magnitude really deserves time for planning, for input, for thoughtful implementation. Without that, we risk some unintended consequences that we might not even see yet because we've only had 2 weeks to really chew on it, it feels like. I do believe we need to be expeditious and decisions should be made, but whether or not we implement it right this moment or later on, we don't want to leave people in limbo, but we also want to do this in a considerate and deliberate manner because you're asking a lot of teachers at the worst possible time of the year to buckle up. You might be teaching an entirely different grade level in an entirely new different school next year, which again, we want to do what's best for kids. But it would be great if it was well thought out. I want to emphasize that students do come first, but teachers are humans too, and we have lives and we have our own families that are going to be impacted by all these decisions. Finally, and honestly, my biggest request, no matter what direction we go, as staffing decisions are made, I would really urge the board and district leadership to prioritize the school site stability first to current staff members who really wish to remain at that site, even if it means changing grade levels. Allowing teachers and aides the option to stay within their school community when possible might help support that morale issue, preserve certain positive aspects of the school culture, provide stability for the students who do get to stay in that school, and it shows respect for the commitment that staff have made to their sites for many, many years. After that process, positions could be opened district-wide. This seems like a really practical step that could make a significant difference in how it's experienced for all of us. But in closing, I ask that you continue to approach this restructuring with the same care, transparency, and a focus on the people it affects most, just as you have been. We're all committed to doing what's best for kids. So thank you for hopefully taking the time to really consider all the inputs.
Hi. My name is Sarah Iros, and I am a teacher at Lowry. So as the discussion surrounding a potential 4-day school week continues, I respectfully ask that the board consider placing this topic on an upcoming agenda for open discussion. As elected representatives of our community, your role in bringing forward issues that matter to those whom you serve is both valued and appreciated. It is clear that there is strong interest within the community regarding this matter, and that many are eager for a thoughtful and transparent conversation. We recognize and sincerely appreciate the dedication, time, and care you have consistently shown in our schools and our community, particularly during what has undoubtedly been a demanding period. Your efforts have not gone unnoticed, and we are grateful for your continued commitment. In the past, the board has demonstrated a willingness to listen to and act on community feedback. Decisions such as calendar adjustments, including the addition of the Thanksgiving break, which I so appreciate, thank you. And responsiveness to the needs of families across different school levels, reflecting your attentiveness and leadership. These actions have built trust and reinforced the value of community input in the decision-making process. On a personal note, my confidence in several board members have been shaped not only by your platforms, but also by my experiences as an educator working with your children. Observing their character and values spoke highly of your leadership and judgment you bring, further strengthening my trust in your ability to make thoughtful decisions for our schools. With that trust in mind, I respectfully ask, both as an educator and as a member of this community, that you continue to listen to and represent the voices of those you serve. The consideration of a 4-day school week is an important topic for many, and I hope it can be given the opportunity for meaningful discussion. Thank you for your time, service, and continued dedication to our schools and community.
Hello, my name is Kristen Flanders. I am here, I'm a school district employee, but I'm also here as a parent. So, and I wanted to share my thoughts about the 4-day school week. I'd like to respectfully ask that the district continue to seriously consider adding a transition to a 4-day school week to a meeting agenda, the next one. I have 3 points that I kind of want to talk about. The first one is about attendance, because time in class matters. In a rural community like ours, many student absences are not avoidable. Families often have to travel long distances, like some people have already said tonight. Sometimes 2 or more hours for medical appointments, sports, and other obligations. At the junior high and high school levels, students regularly miss class for athletics and activities, oftentimes on Fridays, and that also pulls teachers and coaches out of the classroom. A 4-day school week provides a built-in day for appointments and travel, which can significantly reduce these disruptions. Fewer absences mean more consistent instruction and better outcomes for our students. Secondly, I do want to highlight the family time. Living in Winnemucca means we make sacrifices just to access opportunities for our kids. And whether that's traveling for sports games or events or going on vacations to visit other family, a 4-day week would give families a chance to plan those responsibilities without pulling their students out of school. It would also give our kids more time to rest, recharge, and spend meaningful time with their families. I know in my household, my granddaughter would just love that extra day to be at home doing things that she likes at home. Third, we cannot ignore the financial reality facing our district. Last board meeting, we had a large budget reduction that you guys all went through and did a great job at fixing that. I think that was awesome. But the 4-day school week might bring some cost savings ahead of time. So that could maybe help with future years or even bring back some programs or some jobs that might have been needed to go away for this next school year. Savings could be reinvested back into the classrooms or those teachers or programs. Finally, I also want to talk about supporting and retaining quality teachers. Rural districts like ours face the challenges of keeping teachers. Even though we have a great community and we have a great school district, we are one of the few who do not have a 4-day school week. And that is going to end up impacting us, I think, in the near future. This is not about reducing education. It's about using our time and resources more effectively. And And considering the chatter on social media with the survey that went out, it seems our community is ready for this positive change, or at least to have the board talk about it. I do appreciate your time, and I encourage you to explore this option at our next board meeting. Thank you.
Is there any further public comment? Seeing none, moving on to item C, action to adopt the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes. Nope, no changes.
I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries unanimously. Moving on to item D, the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you, Madam President. I just want to start the evening by expressing my sincere thanks to the committee in charge of exploring the grade band switch. I believe some of them are out here in the audience tonight, but I know that this committee has put an incredible amount of time, discussion, research, and passion for kids into tonight's presentation. In particular, I want to acknowledge Noel and Deanna for their efforts in leading this work. It feels like there's a lot going on right now, and we have two people that I trust so implicitly is an unbelievable feeling. Noel and Dee literally stopped everything in their normal workflow to take care of this and give you guys a thoughtful presentation tonight. So just thanks as always to those two. I also wanted to thank the parents, the staff, the administrators that served on this committee and gave their voice. You know, we had representation from every school affected, and just a thoughtfulness I think you guys are going to see come through, and the research that they did to help you guys support that hard decision. And finally, just parents for your willingness to color outside the lines of this process, right? Change is never easy, especially in a school system. But this team looked at a challenge and turned it into creative thinking and innovation that you guys will get the opportunity to listen to this evening. Last week, Brooks submitted 2 more grants to potential grantees in support of refurbishing grammar school. A request was made to Senator Cortez Mastro's office and to Senator Rosen's office. The timeline for awarding these grants is further out than our previous request to Amity. So I'm thinking a couple months before we'll hear on these. But again, just want the community to know we're trying, we're making efforts. Appreciate Lonnie for providing more letters of recommendation for us, along with Mr. Cardenas in the back there and a couple other key community members. I want to thank the board and both bargaining units for their efforts in supporting the identification of potential cuts to the budget. I want to let the board know that all the teachers that had to be involuntarily reassigned have selected positions in the district, and we are beginning to move forward posting open positions for applicants. This could be an interesting hiring season, as we know other districts are laying teachers off. So there's potential we might fill some if not most of our positions with certified teachers for the first time in many years. So I plan on beginning board staffing updates in May to keep everybody apprised of those changes. Yesterday, good news for the board and the community as a whole. Ron and I had the opportunity to drive out to Denial and meet with the families in the community. I was like, where's that coming from? But yeah, in total, we met with 5 different families who represented a total of 11 kids. And all these families majority of these families are new to the community. Some had kindergartners. But all of them expressed interest in going to school next year and reopening Denial. So, we met with Susan today and she wants to be back out there. So we're just rolling along as far as getting that Denial thing taking place. Exciting news for the community and the board. And this was on the agenda anyway, because per our policy, we had to decide whether to keep it inactive or not at the next board meeting. So we believe there's a light at the end of the tunnel and we'll be able to open that for the school. So thanks to Ron for being my road partner yesterday. We'll be holding our NCE community profile event next Monday. This plan for this day is to look at the profile that was created and shared with the board, receive additional feedback from the original committee, and move forward with finalizing the plan. After that, we will meet with admin and begin the process of detailing out the next steps and taking the vision to reality. This includes embedding our competencies in all aspects of our classrooms to assure a holistic approach to student achievement. I know Lori had the opportunity to attend the original development, but all are welcome to attend on Monday if they would like to see the process to close. And then lastly, this is our last board meeting before spring break, so I just want to take a moment to wish all the teachers, staff, and students a wonderful, restful week off from school. And I hope we get to continue this spring-like weather so everybody can actually enjoy it, but I'm sure there'll be 3 feet of snow, as there is every spring break. So that is my report.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Courtney?
Just a comment, I attended the school board meeting in Reno on Saturday, and Janice Case was there presenting to school board members. throughout the state, and I think basically the state is kind of adopting the whole program. She's going to a lot of schools now and presenting, so it's kind of an exciting thing.
Now, if we just push it through the legislature,
Yeah.
the legislature for significant change, that'd be great.
Right.
So, yeah, thank you.
Moving on to item E, celebrations. Do we have celebrations this evening?
We do, Dustin, we have a group of them out here, so I'm really excited to have.
Okay, just recognize our mining foundation constituents. You guys can come up, I just kind of want to recognize the impact that they've had over the last 6-7 years. The data I pulled on this. And then if you guys would just state your name and your entity and who you serve and that kind of thing, and then I'll
I am Lisa Baker, I'm from Hycroft Resources.
Maria Anderson, Lithium Americas.
Heather Nelson, SSR Mining.
Brian Cornett, Franklin, Nevada.
And I'm going to start the Mining Industry Foundation's investment in Lowry High School has created lasting, measurable impact by expanding access to technology, strengthening career and technical education pathways, and preparing students for high-demand careers. From 2019 to 26, program and technology investments have included in 2019 classroom technology, Chromebooks, and licenses to the tune of $33,000. In 2020, $20,000, which ensured consistent, equitable access to digital tools across classrooms. 3D printers in 2019 to the tune of $11,000, which enabled hands-on design, prototyping, and manufacturing experiences, and really built momentum for the program that you see today that Mr. Santos runs. Diesel program, equipment, and curriculum, 2021. They invested $40,000, which allowed us to do built industry aligned training pathways for skilled trades. For the manufacturing technology and robotics programs in 2022, $136,000 to get initial equipment and curriculum. In 2023, $34,000 to get additional equipment. In 2024, another $24,000 in additional equipment. In 2025, $12,000 in VEX World Championships team travel funds. And then that allowed us to expand advanced manufacturing, robotics, and competitive STEM learning, which now has even filtered down into our lower elementary grades. They've also supported our work, as Lori mentioned previously, with NCEE, or the National Center on Education and Economy. This year, $50,000 toward those efforts. And this supports future-focused career and technical education initiatives that we've all been discussing. So our annual student and educator recognition, they continue to support that. That includes our academic assembly, up to $25,000 annually, and our teacher and staff awards banquet of another $12,000, which allows us to celebrate our achievements, strengthen our school culture, and reinforces the value of education in our community. Our measurable outcomes are our return on investment. Here's some hard data. Student certifications from 2023 to 25. We had 84 students earn the NC3 Certificate of Knowledge for Fundamentals of Industry. 54 NC3 certificates earned in Intro to Mechanics and Fundamentals of Electricity, Pneumatics, Hydraulics, Mechanical Systems, Sensor Technology, Robotics, and Allen Bradley PLCs. And then 5 students have attended and earned Universal Robotics Core Training Certificates. For workforce readiness, students graduate with industry-recognized credentials, hands-on experience, and exposure to national level STEM competition. And then educator excellence. The Lowry manufacturing teacher received the NASB Innovative Teacher of the Year Award, reflecting program quality and instructional innovation. So none of this stuff could be possible without the efforts of the Mining Foundation. So just wanted to recognize you guys for all that effort. It doesn't go unnoticed. I know those kids, anytime you talk to them, they are talking about those programs and those opportunities. So just wanted to recognize you guys and tell you thank you from all of us.
I can see over your breath. Yeah.
You really don't want
Okay. 1, 2, 3. One more. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I have.
Great, moving on to item F, the consent agenda. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Moving on to item G, discussion of possible action items. Item 1, presentation and review of committee information on moving from our current middle school model to K-6 or K-5 configured elementary schools for possible action.
Well, as you can see, I have Deanna, Noel, and Anthony moving up to the front of the room. Again, I just really want to spotlight the work this committee did. They all dove right in, we understood this was a short timeline to turn information around for you guys. They were literally working up to the last minute today. But poor Anthony was crammed in, 1,000 address changes last week to get this taken care of. So we had accurate data around the community of where houses were. So it just can't go unspoken how hard these guys worked over the course of these last 2 weeks to get this information out and just provide you with this super thoughtful information and researched information. So I will turn it over to the team. I think they have some other representatives here potentially, but the floor is yours, everybody. Thank you for all you did.
So if you were on the committee, will you please stand up? So we owe a huge thank you to the committee members, but there were also some people behind the scenes, and you see one of them over here, along with Mike. Anthony spent a lot of time starting at 4 or 5 in the morning, getting us to a place, particularly with some information with the rezoning that we're going to show tonight. So we owe a huge thank you to both him and Mike coming up with some fiscal implications. So thank you. And then my partner in crime and I were asked to put together the committee. And really our role was just to be facilitators. We didn't vote, we just put all of the data and information together for you to look at tonight. The thing that I want to remind you though is in a 2-week period, just as you've heard before, this is a quick turnaround time, so the numbers are crude, right? Meaning that could we be off a little in some of our numbers? Not a lot, because we've gone through 1,400 kids, 1,440 actually, but I just want you to know it's not perfect at this moment in time, but it's an approximate and we're pretty close. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Will you flip to the next slide? Here's basically our purpose. 2 weeks ago, you voted, hey, we want some other options. So we went into high status and we are coming to you with a few more options. I think it was actually Lori and Colby that said, hey, why don't we put a committee together? So we took that suggestion, we tried to represent almost everyone affected. We could have had all 3 schools, 4 schools of people, but we did at some point have to narrow it down so that we had a smaller voice because it would have been unrealistic or maybe unmanageable if we had had a whole bunch of people on there. If you'll go to the next one. Here's just a list of those that were here on the committee. You see many of them here, some aren't here tonight, but it gave us a nice representation from parent voice to administrative voice, teachers, specialty teachers, association reps. So some people held multiple roles in this. However, it was a pretty nice collective group together. All right, so here is what we're going to talk about tonight. Option 1, if you forget what it is, it's just what we're doing right now, okay? Option 2, I'm gonna call it's a PK5 with really a middle school. A 6-8 is considered a middle school in this model. So if you hear me refer to it as a middle school, I'm talking about option 2. And then option 3 is that PK6, and it's with a junior high because that would be a 7 and 8. So those are the 3 options that we're gonna present. You've already heard option 1 and what it looked like at last board meeting. Now we're gonna scale it up and show you what it looks like with all 3 of them together, okay? All right, here was our process, because there's no written rule how to do this. So this is the process that we did. We formed a committee, thank you Colby and Lori. Then we sent out a survey, and the purpose of the survey was to gather some stakeholder feedback, not just staff, parents. We had kids take the survey, we had community members take the survey, and it was to try and gather what was their perception right at this moment in time with no research. So we just gave them based on how you feeling about these topics. And we're gonna talk a little bit and show you the data in the survey. Then we had our first committee meeting. And really the goal of that one is we knew we had to have flushed out what a rezone would look like. So that's where Anthony came in. And we spent several days where he did it on his own. Then he and I thought we had a good plan. And then we had Deanna and Colby and Dustin come in and then continue to work on that to really think about what's the most equitable situation. So we talked about zones, and then we also talked about our current building capacity. What does it look like if we put PK6 in it, PK5 in it? What does it look like if we put all the 6 in that middle school model at the junior high? So lots of discussion that first night. Then we also looked at the survey data, and I'd like to say we looked at the state ramifications, but the state hasn't given us a list of all the impact it will have, so it's our creative thinking just in our roles. But they were stunned when Deanna initially reached out to them. They were like, this year? So they weren't prepared to give us something quite yet either, because I don't think they know the ramifications quite yet. Then we developed the outcome for the first night was our pros and cons list. So after they had an opportunity to go through sets of data, they came up with each one of the options, the pros and cons. And then the other piece that we did is right at the very end, we said, what else do we need to consider? What other data do we need to bring forward? Other ideas to think about. Then the second meeting, we discussed the research. What does research say? And I don't know if Colby had a chance to send this out to you, but if you want a hard copy, we have hard copies. And this, we spent some time last night was our second meeting, really looking at what does it say is best for kids out of all the research? What is the best opportunity for them social emotionally, academically, all of those pieces. Then what we did is we compared, did our pros and cons list match the research? Like, were we way off base or were we pretty darn close? Then we discussed the fiscal limitations or ramifications, whatever word you want to put in there if that's negative. And then committee members in attendance had an opportunity to give us their first choice, but we didn't let them just stop there. We asked them to say why. Why would you choose that? And then we shared the board presentation with them, what we had built at that point with a smattering of the 2 slides from the first 2 meetings, which ended up being an excellent activity because then they said, oh no, move this here. This is really impactful for me. And so they basically helped us move it around to be able to share it with you tonight. You go to the next slide. One of the things I know you want, and it just makes my heart sing, is data. So you need lots and lots of data when you think about making a decision like this. And it doesn't just come in the form of numbers, right? So we talked and looked at fiscal impacts. We looked at research. We looked at traffic flow, bus routes. We looked at what would it mean if we rezoned these kids here. At one point, we had no 3rd graders at Grass Valley, so we knew that zone wasn't going to work, right? We needed committee input. We needed building capacity. Can we even fit the kids there? And then we also needed that perception data of our stakeholders saying, what do you think? Are we crazy? And what they came back to us with. You saw the research. So in the research, if you dug into it, the one chart that's really critical is it says, when you're starting this process, here's what you should have. When you look at this list, and I don't need to read it to you, but we looked at every piece of this list and gathered data for you. We go to the next one. A huge piece of the research that's really, really important to like pull out is transitions. The more transitions you put kids in, like our current system, pre-K4 transitioning to 5-6, transitioning to 7-8, they're saying the more transitions is not the best for students. Less transitions is better, okay? Next one. This one, in the key findings, it shows you, do you pull pre-K3 out? Do you have PK6? Do you have PK5? What's the best configuration here? And we're gonna go through some of that research tonight, but if you look at the third bullet, it really talks about 6th grade students generally benefit from a placement in an elementary school. And there's lots of reasons why, but the biggest is relationships. They stay, not a little kid, but they have more time to mature in that. Test scores over the research show that they have higher math scores and ELA scores. And it also really talks about kids that have, that are economically disadvantaged, might have some at-risk components to their life, actually do better in a longer system in that transition than they do like in a 2-year period with lots of transitions. Okay, we go to the next one. And this one just shows, do you decide between 5th, ending in 5th, or ending in 6th, and what I named for you. The other piece to this is the middle school model. The 6th graders are where the research really comes out. There's actually no research, even though parents brought it up, which I think is a key point, is I don't want my kindergartner with a 6th grader. We have structures in place for schools anyways. It's not as though we would have our 6th graders being in a situation where they're sharing the playground or doing things that's an unsupervised event. But it's new, right? And I don't know that I'd want my 6-year-old hanging out with a 12 or 13-year-old at that moment in time, something unsupervised. But I think this is different in the fact that what the research says is it's fine. There's actually benefits for those 6th graders to have some leadership opportunities. And there's benefits for those pre-KK to actually be in that configuration. All right, so we made our committee work really, really hard and have this document. And then we said, did you confirm anything in your pros and cons before you had an opportunity to even read this? And was there some alignment? And there was. So we did a chart and the research versus pros and cons. This is what they said even before they saw the research, and then it confirmed it for the research. There's fewer transitions. PK6 fiscally advantage is an advantage, and we're going to show you that soon. It definitely keeps 6th graders younger longer. More leadership opportunities, perhaps not a con to keep 6th grade at elementary. 4th grade might be apprehensive because they were top dogs before. Transitions, high need for stability. Less transitions is definitely better. 6th grade, not well prepared and developed a transition in this year. And what that was is in a middle school model. The transition can often be hard for those 6th graders moving into that. Behavior increases, academics go down according to the research. SEL and academic benefit, as I've talked about before, there was higher test scores in that 6th grade. It keeps traditions in place. It allows for an equitable distribution. And 6th grade in a particularly benefit both in SEL and academics. That self-esteem piece when they're at a really critical maturity age is what came up. That's your evidence. Oh, go back one forward. Sorry, go back two, just kidding. Oh,
Where
no,
am I
sorry, right there.
at?
And basically, the model to eliminate, if we were to look at research, is actually our current model. And now Anthony will be speaking on rezoning.
All right, so like Noel said, we tried, I think, rezoning kids into every different possible way we could. And then like some schools, yeah, would have 86 fifth graders and 18 third graders. So we had to just tweak and tweak and tweak. But we finally got to a number where it was, the number of students was pretty accurate. But then we started running into some transportation issues where we'd have to add some bus routes and stuff like that. So then we ended up kind of zoning Sonoma and then zoning around Sonoma for Grass Valley and French Fork, because it was the easiest way to keep them in that 2 mile radius, how they are right now. So, and then we're trying to keep everyone, our SES demographic, we had to kind of keep separate so that it's not everyone's at one school or the other school. So we merged a lot of stuff. I ended up changing a little bit more and adding one more zone to French Fork and kind of even that out between all the schools. So now we're back to even, which is kind of how we are right now. And then like going through the K through, well, either model, we don't have, like on transportation side, we don't have to add bus routes. We don't have to add anything extra to it. We just gotta redo them all, but that won't take very long at all. So you can go to the next one, Colby. So this is kind of a general idea. You can't see the streets or anything in this. It's hilarious how tiny Sonoma's little circle is, but there's 460 kids other than that area. So, and yeah, Grass Valley, the only difference really is we go all the way to Moon Lane. For this Moon Lane to Grass Valley, we'll have to add those kids, or else Sonoma would have had way too many kids. So we did have to change the zoning there a little bit. And then we changed the zoning in a little bit for French Ford, where all those kids that French Ford, that used to go to grammar school, and then pretty much all your grammar kids are now, your Golconda, Highway 95, Jungle Road, Pioneer Park kids will now be going over to French Ford, which for like traffic patterns and everything going that way, you're getting that whole group going one way, and then you're getting Sonomas all going the other way, and we should be able to kind of avoid each other and keep traffic in town to pretty much a minimum. So, good. So we kind of tried to figure out, this is hard. So this took a lot of brain power. So about 60% of your current K through 5 students will be affected by the rezoning, whether that's now they're staying at their current elementary school for 2 more years, or they were in 5th grade at French Fork, but now they're going to be in 5th grade at Grass Valley or over at Sonoma, depending on the zones. So the 60% is, some of it's not very, super impactful, but the biggest one is Sonoma. 174 of your Sonoma kids up in that Offenhauser, up by the high school area, they're now going to be going to French Fork instead of Sonoma. So that's your biggest impact, is all those students. But like out Rose Creek, you only have 28 students that are affected, 20 by the Center Moon area, and then 252 going to Grass Valley, Sonoma, and French Fork. With the new zoning, you are spreading the kids out between all 3 schools. So there's going to be a decent amount of kids at Grass Valley, Sonoma, and French Fork. Your biggest number of grammar kids is going to be going to French Fork now. So that's about it.
Any questions up to this point? I know so the committee probably spent 5 hours going through all of this. So if at any point in time you need us to clarify, just stop us and we'll give you more info. Okay, so this next piece is really looking at what the the impact of the new zoning compared to what you voted on last meeting on staffing plans. So this really this right now lines out Grass Valley, Frenchford, and Sonoma. So let's look at second grade, for instance. So second grade, Grass Valley has 3 allocations, Frenchford would have 4, Sonoma would have 3, meaning we need 10. And our staffing plan only had 9, meaning we would have to increase. But notice up above, we're decreasing in a couple of places. And I want to remind you of Noelle's disclaimer, our numbers aren't clean yet. So we really anticipate that by the time our zoning lists come out, that this will probably rectify itself. And if not, then in a few slides from now, we're going to talk about something called open enrollment. I know you guys have been exposed to it a little bit.
My least favorite building.
Your favorite thing, I know. I do think that'll help us in this.
Yeah,
so
it probably will here.
Help kind of mitigate some of this. So while overall, this zoning looks like we would have to add 1 staff member, our hunch is that probably is not true. We think we'll stay static the way you staffed in the last meeting. But our current data shows we made it.
And I think the piece that we didn't have on this first chart was DE students taken out. That's what she'll go through now. That's where some of it will be a wash.
Okay, the next several sets of slides are really repetitive. So if you're okay with me just looking at Grass Valley as an example of what we're seeing. So what we have in the slide deck, we have Grass Valley in its current configuration, pre-K through 4. That second column, that means next year we start with 602 students. We need 30 teachers. We currently have 28 classrooms available, meaning we need 2 more classrooms. Somewhere we have to come up with 2 classrooms.
And there's not portables out there.
And that would count these. So you'll see, in a few more slides, we'll see the fiscal impact. So if we stay with what's current, there's a cost to staying with what's current because while we're making it work right now, I think you probably have some teachers out here who's going barely. It's barely making it work.
We've heard that a lot, right?
Yeah, there's just not enough elbow room, right?
Yeah.
We would need to expand space. Next slide is an example if the grade configuration was pre-K through 5th, changes drastically, then we only need 19 teachers and there's plenty of space, right? Everybody's gonna have their own space. Our specialists, our music teacher, our special ed teachers would each have a room. Next slide. And by the way, that at a pre-K 5th, we'd have 412 students there, which is somewhere between what Grass Valley started with and what they have now. If we go to a pre-K 6th, they're up to about 474 students, 22 teachers, 22 classrooms, and 28 classrooms available. So in this setup, pre-K 6, there's plenty of space. What you're going to see on the subsequent slides, and if you want to just go slowly through this, you're going to see the exact same thing in every one. Sonoma has, in any situation, has enough rooms. Frenchford, in any configuration, whether it's K5 or K6, has enough rooms. Junior high, though.
Just let me know if I can go too fast.
If you add,
What's the asterisk on the 28?
Just because that's a high, that 5th grade group, that was one of those like outlier, you can see we have 2 groups that have outlier high numbers. Almost everywhere we're like 60, 70. So I think that asterisk would be just noting that that could potentially be where we'd have a teacher if we.
That's the one that.
Yeah.
And it's actually down
So-
now.
Oh, but if that's without the potential like rezone, for zoning some of those kids over at Sonoma, that's where we thought potentially this open zoning thing could work in our favor. 5th grade at Sonoma was smaller.
do you guys have questions that
Colby answered it.
answered?
Nice job.
Good job, Colby. Way to go.
It was just more about the asterisk.
And you guys have to say, I mean, Colby has been so appreciative and grateful and more than a cheerleader. He's has dug right in with all of this. He's allowed us the time to do this. He has been really open to all of the what ifs that are out there, right? Any committee what if that might have been and was like, explore it, figure it out, find the research, figure this out. If you'll stop on the junior high one, I do want to point out junior high. If we were to consider option 2, that's the pre-K 5 in elementaries and 6-8 in the middle school. That is like our current configuration. Anthony kind of put it really well. He goes, well, option 1 and 2, you just switch your problem. Either you're overcrowded at Grass Valley or you're overcrowded at Winnemucca Junior High if you add a grade level. So again, 29 classrooms needed, and they potentially have 28 classrooms, meaning we would have to bring in a portable there as well. And we'll, our next slide talks about.
I'd argue you throw gas on the problem based on the age group.
Yes, exactly. You know,
Yeah.
and there's that, and you saw the research, and one surprising thing, I think, for me personally, and I saw it even, I don't know, please jump in, any committee members if you want. Once we really dug into the research, I'm sure what you heard is 6th grade, 6th grade, 6th grade, because that's what's all over in the research. It's really a pivotal year. So consideration of 6th graders really became kind of a pivot point for all of our thinking around, you know, what is best for kids? What's the best setup for kids? So you've seen that, and you'll kind of continue to see it. So surprise, surprise, I get the fiscal implication, but you sure you're all shocked. And again, these are ballpark numbers. And one thing I'm going to say, so in options 1 and 2, you're going to see options for portables. Some of what goes into this fiscal implication, it's Mike and Anthony have been great about providing quotes, like there's what one cost. But there's some unknown factors in that, right? Like, can we get a portable in that time? Maybe. Can we get Nevada Energy in a shortened period of time to come hook it up? Do we even have the, I don't know how power people talk, do we have the right amount of power?
Well, we ran into that issue at the high school when we went to put the HVAC in.
Yeah.
We thought we'd be fine, and that set us back 2 years. So
Yes, it's a,
power alone.
yeah, it's
So
a,
it's a
so this
question.
fiscal part is, it's a little more complicated than just the dollars and cents. So option 1, remember, is keeping things the same. We could keep it the same with 600 students and 30 teachers at Grass Valley, but we're gonna need some space. 2 portables would be about $250,000, $260,000 for a wet portable, so not much difference in price until you go to dig a hole and put some plumbing to it, right? That increases the cost exponentially. So they're thinking all of the power, water, sewer, asphalt would be some of this, is about $400,000 per unit.
Is the sewer have to be a septic tank?
And
Or are
Grass
they on
Valley
both?
would, yeah, Grass Valley side.
Okay.
Timeline, like, I know part of the decision that you'll be weighing is, do we do this right now? Do we get at it and get it done, or do we wait a year? Timeline to get portables and get all of this work done. We're not sure that that's realistic, right? To think that all of that could get done. If we were to explore that, I don't know. For us, we weren't really in a position to go, sure, we can force Nevada Energy to be there and to get this done, but it's a little bit of an unknown. So as you think about it, and you're gonna see that same thing with option 2. And committee's opinion is it's not really fiscally responsible, right? To put that kind of money into what may be a temporary fix, we don't know. Option 2, actually, so that's an impact of between $800,000 and $1.3 million. That's if we stay the same with what we do right now. Option 2 is that middle school model where we have 6 through 8 over here. We explored a lot of different things. How do we create space, right? Too many kids, not enough rooms. We talked about, can we put them in the DE building? Can we clear out our offices downstairs? Can we bring in portables? So you'll see a few options here. Same price on the portables, same price on the water sewer, but this one includes fencing, because if we put kids in the DE building, somehow we've got to fence off children from our shipping area, right? Which shares a door with where the kids would go in and out of that building.
You're talking about just right out.
Yeah.
This little road going up the hill.
Somehow we'd have to get fencing in there. There's also like an increased cost here too on, there is some concern about digging up asphalt were we to have to put in sewer. Like Mike has some concerns that way, that the cost actually could be even higher than what we're putting in. We also, there's a fiscal implication. If you put 6 through 8 there, you're gonna add over 200 kids and there would be no Title I money that follows them. That will be a hit for them, right? They'll be at a disadvantage. They'll have a third again as many kids. And that kind of money, it's too late in the year for that money to follow them. So again, the impact is between 800,000 and 1.4 million. And then option 3 is pre-K 6 and 7-8. The previous slides where we talked about allocations and the number of rooms, we don't have to add any, there's no portable need, there's no need to clear out another space. We have enough space currently to divide all of our K-6 kids up through 3 elementary schools without adding anything. Except, and you heard Leslie talk, that French Fork isn't necessarily designed to be a school for little tiny kids. But we did talk as a group about it. We talked a little bit with maintenance about it. There are some changes that could be affordable, right? Certainly bathrooms, there aren't bathrooms that are built for littles, but that's, in Mike's opinion, that was a pretty low cost, maybe $1,000 to replace toilets for little kids for the number that you would need. We need some kind of fencing. You've heard it come up that parents might have a concern about kindergartners intermingling with 6th graders. Well, they're way too big, right? If they're playing a game of tag and a 6th grader crashes into a kindergartner's not gonna win on that one, right? So we do need some, and having worked with kindergartners, I would not want to chase a kindergartner around the playground as a big sport, right? I want them corralled in a little bit. So there would be a fencing cost, and then playground equipment. Our kids need equipment that they can build gross motor skills with, right? And right now that isn't in place. And this piece in particular, we're not saying that the school, we have to get it ordered and built immediately. That's something that maybe the school could work on fundraising for. But at some point in time, we would want appropriate playground equipment for the littles.
So we have playground equipment at Grammar that's just sitting there right now, obviously. And when we go in and do work on the building, it's probably gonna be in the way. Is there a way to move some of that in the intermittent time?
So
Anthony,
there's
do you know?
been a little bit of talk about that, and as a committee, we weren't really sure if the school owned that or if the PTO owned that. We actually had a parent who said that it's the Winnemucca Grammar School children who earned the money. So we tried to stay away from that and just thought we could decide later.
So the only thing, because my kids were there, the PTO paid for the overhangs and the district put them in. The park the equipment came from the school district.
Oh, you mean the stuff that's in the ground right now?
Yes.
I'm gonna let Anthony answer.
Yeah, the swings,
Why did they get new stuff?
yes.
It sounds like they.
Yeah, they got a
Okay, so I
bunch of-
didn't know that.
Yeah,
part of
through
it.
PTO, we got a bunch of new stuff.
I didn't know that part of it.
Like the swings, when I was talking with Mike, you can't move swings because the health inspector just won't allow it. They're also in 5 feet of concrete, trying to get them out and
Yeah,
then
but-
break the concrete off.
When we do work, there's.
Like you could use the seats and stuff like that, you just can't use any of the actual structure, but you can still use the seats and the chain and all that stuff. And then I don't think we were 100% sure on anything with the actual playground equipment. But same thing, I'm sure there's parts of it maybe, but they're 5 feet of concrete, so like getting them out without breaking the legs, I don't know how we would do, but
It's just an idea.
yeah.
I mean, and Nicole, I think if we could do it, I think if maintenance found a way.
Yeah,
We
and I
actually
don't know how
tried
they
some
put
of that
it in
with
either.
their stuff and it was, I don't know, it was pretty damaging sometimes, but, maybe with more time. But one way or another, we would want something that's appropriate
Yeah.
for kids to,
And I honestly didn't look that far into it, so I don't know a whole lot about moving the equipment or anything like that.
Do we know what equipment the PTO bought?
Yeah, we haven't installed it yet. So that, and it was actually through a grant. I don't actually know what it is, probably some more slides and
There were
stuff.
like 3 or
but
4
it's sitting
pieces.
over here, yeah. Yeah, I think it wasn't I'm not sure that PTA got it, I think it was grant funded, Becca went out and got a
Part of
grant
it
for it.
was, about 20,000 of it came from the grant they
And
received 2 years in a
We
row.
really
And then they
didn't
did pay
touch
for
that
the
though,
balance.
because we felt as though that's an outlier right now. And they
Yeah, well-
purchased it for their school, and because it's an unknown, we just thought in this fiscal implication, we know we're gonna need about this.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I was just asking.
We'd love them to give it, but.
Well, otherwise it's gonna sit there for a few years.
So my question is, like, what about the stairs and stuff in French Ford? Because I know that was a concern that Colby and I had talked about was, you know, if those littles go up those stairs and those railings aren't really little proof.
Leslie actually had the health inspector come over, and what did she say about the?
So at this point, it would really be just about the spacing in between the rails that would be, needed to be in consideration. So she actually is reaching out to the building inspector to see what would need to happen, whether or not it would just be a plexiglass piece that was put on there. One thing that we certainly can't do is put any sort of gates or things like that in front of the stairs, because that does violate fire codes, it's a fire safety component. But really, if we were going to need to modify that, it's pretty minimal.
Well, just on the, having worked in fire service side of stuff, it's a public building. We've had community events there before. I don't see any hang up that way.
Well, in grammar school, they used to have a library upstairs and all of them went up there, so I mean.
I mean, it's built for public service, so.
Yeah.
One of our newest buildings.
So that, we didn't factor that piece in, partly because we think it'll probably be minimal, that might be a cost. But that part aside, we figured there would potentially, if we did buy playground equipment, be impacted about $130,000.
And that's not an immediate one you have to have, where the other ones are,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
buildings and everything, and so.
Yeah, 'cause there's still like, they have those rocks and ropes the kids can,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's not
The
perfect.
fencing is probably the only one that, like, if I was gonna advocate for something, I'd probably go.
Yeah, do the fencing, which makes sense.
But you'll still get like the trikes and all that stuff from pre-K that were at grammar over there, so for the little, there's still some of that stuff too that transfers.
I think the other piece to think about, and Leslie talked to the committee about this, is they'd be strategic who they put upstairs. It would be unlikely that we're gonna put the pre-K kids.
That was my thought when you asked that question, but I was like, well,
Yeah.
well, it's just because we were talking about if littles got up there, that spacing between the railings was the only concern. Not that they would have them up there full time, but the ones that like to run and take off.
Yeah, yeah.
And that has impact on the restrooms too. You know, if you keep all the little children downstairs, you only have to fix a couple toilets, a couple seats, or a seat, and not worry about the upstairs.
Okay, so state ramifications, I wanna, before I cover any of these, I just wanna point out that these state ramifications would be in place whether this happens for the 26-27 school year or for the 27-28 school year, right? Like either we get it done in the next, what you're gonna see is 21 weeks, 20 weeks, or, you know, we wait a year and a half. But these ramifications are all the same. So some of this, so on the state side of things, they're gonna have to look at things like Nevada Report Card, the SPP platform. You know, these are things that the state buys, that they provide to us and then require that they use, but it's gonna create a rebuild on the vendor side. And federal designations, at least for, I think it'll have a multi-year impact, right? Because the schools will sit with whatever federal designation they sit with next year, and then I think it takes actually 3 years. Like, we're talking, it'll be probably 4 years from now before any school gets a designation, which, I don't know, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Could be a good thing. There will be a heavy load with our student information system staff, so Jennifer Wilhite in particular. And you guys, there's really strict deadlines, and the reason I point this out is we hope you can come to some kind of determination tonight, because if you want another couple of weeks to think about it, we will pass some of the deadlines that need to be done. So some of them are things like build the school calendar. I meant to check with her before she left and I just forgot, to tell you the truth, but there's very strict pieces that she would have to have in place that there's no recourse from. She has to turn it in. The e-page system, I've reached out to the state. They're right in the middle of grant season, right? Like they're not purposely not answering us. They're trying to get their job done. And I think frankly, they just don't know what would happen. What I think will happen is they're gonna have to work with a vendor on recreating grade bins. It's not impossible. It'll just be funky for a while. I already talked about the model, the middle school model, kind of the inequities in Title I. Read by third reporting would have an impact on schools. Do you want to mention that at all?
When they're grade band together, like now in our pre-K 4, it goes up to 4th grade. But the moment you put 5th grade in that configuration, they become part of that read by grade 3 legislation. 6th grade still stays out. But so they would have intervention plans, noticing all of that. So it adds that layer on of another grade level.
And then the last piece, there's grant development implications. So my team has been kind of hard and heavy doing grants. We have kind of 3 in the hopper. My guess is should you choose to move in the direction of changing grade bands, we'll get some extra practice on that this year. They'll all have to be redone, which they're done once, they can be redone again, but it is an implication that comes from a benefit standpoint.
Okay, now we're gonna transition into what the survey data revealed. So this first slide just basically says who took the survey. I did the chart down at the bottom just to kind of represent. Here was my mess up. I probably should have had one that said, are you a HCSD staff member plus a parent? I didn't do that. So Deanna and I went through the hard data and made sure to gather all of the right numbers. I haven't done that type of data analysis where we go one by one in a long time. We ended up having 505 responses to this, and it was pretty quick. We put it out right at the end of last week, and by this last Friday, it had jumped up to 505. At that point, we knew we had a good representation of data. So you'll see in this next one, no, go ahead, Chloe, sorry. I'll go like this, okay? How supportive are you for the district to even explore this? So out of that 505, 69%, if you take off the 3/10, basically said, yeah, go ahead, right? This is non-committal, just, yeah, do it. All right, go on to our next one. This is where, in hindsight, I wish we'd also put some research in here at about this question on down, because we were asking parents to make a decision not knowing what all the research said. So in hindsight, I wish we could go back and redo this. But when you look at this, how concerned are you about, this could be a teacher saying, hey, my kids are going somewhere, or a parent saying it. So very concerned or somewhat concerned, if you bucket those together, that's about 30%. Neutral, slightly concerned, 31%, not concerned at all, 38%. Then we had 3 outliers. And basically it came to, it's fine if you move them as long as it's the closest school to my house, right? Like that's pretty legit. Like don't make me drive out to Grass Valley and I, live in Paradise or something like that, okay? All right, next slide. This one.
Can I go back on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
As a parent, no matter what, shouldn't you be concerned? That question is just like,
I mean.
I thought that too.
So I very valid. I think where this came out is when you get a forced choice, right? These were the options. Maybe they're not concerned because they're thinking, yeah, I want to change. I want something different for my child. Or maybe they want their kid to stay younger and it's a 5th grade parent, right?
Fits into their, yeah. ideal.
And when I think about that, I think they're trusting us to make the decision based on, the factors that are best for kids. Maybe that's the glasses half full approach, but
I like it
just.
though.
Well, and
And I'll add,
me, I probably would be not concerned, so I see it differently just because like for my student, I didn't know just knowing him, he'd be fine forever. Yeah.
And that's what I was gonna add, as long as, I mean, Mike, I would have answered no, not concerned too, because what really matters is the teacher that cares about my kid in the classroom, not the building. So I really wouldn't be concerned where, and I don't even know where that ends up next year.
Right, so it probably is a lot just in
Yeah.
interpretation.
Yeah, and I think that's it, a matter of interpretation.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we've asked parents, they're really not given much options this year to be like, hey, we have to do this, but yeah, there you go, like.
And another piece I wish that, we had added to the survey data is the context, like what grades are your kids in? So that we could have really said sixth grade parents predominantly, blah, or fifth grade parents, but we don't have that level of data. Will you go to the next one? This one gave us a little bit of a heart attack. 79% said basically rip off the Band-Aid, people, move it in 26, 27. 21% basically said, wait a minute. Now, this is where I wish they had had some of the research. And a lot of comments, the one-offs were things like, I don't want my kindergarten student with a sixth grader and things like that. The opposite for the middle school one came up in the comments in terms of, I don't want my sixth grader with seventh and eighth graders. So they, again, what the research shows were the same parent concerns that showed up in this. All right, then we basically asked the question, what concerns do you have? When you look at this, you're gonna see that this one literally went through every piece of data. And most of the outliers that are down below the ones are people that put all of these, other than I don't have a concern, meaning they said all of these things are a concern. So like to Lori's point, they did voice it here. What I want you to be thinking about though is I'm gonna show you what the positive flip on it is. So flip to the next slide. When you look at this set of data, almost all of the positives were like nearly hitting that 100%. So there was double the positive there was to the negative, which shows in that 79% saying, hurry up and make the change next year, right? We go on to the next slide. All right, Dee's gonna talk about open enrollment. Very fascinating topic. Nicole?
Yeah. Well, I think like you said, it will probably benefit us here, but prior to this, I was really like, this benefits Mark and Washoe, this does not benefit the rural areas at all. But you're gonna prove me wrong, so.
It's definitely gonna, it's gonna be a new endeavor for us, right? And for potentially every other district in the state. So what AB 533 and SB 460 say is parents have the right to ask for a seat in a school that has a seat in a grade level, right? So we're gonna have to look at those numbers that we looked at and probably look at things like the legislation around class size requirements. And if Sonoma has 11 kids in kindergarten, then we might say there's 5 seats open, right, that people could transfer into. So this isn't an open free-for-all. It would be based on some kind of metric that will probably be what the state says we can have. And then we would never be, we're a public school, right? We're never gonna be closed. You probably noticed in those class sizes, we don't have classes like that, right? Most of our classes this year are gonna be at least at 20-1, if not 27 or 28-1. So in this open enrollment piece, it's possible in a school, there might only be 4 seats across 4 grade levels, right? It's gonna be really limited. But I do think it might help us kind of even out some of the those 28-1 ratios. the intention of this is to really promote equity for English learners, and to Nicole's point, in really densely populated places, they don't have the luxury of having somebody like Anthony go, all right, I'm gonna look at the zoning, and we're gonna have to move some things around so that French Fork doesn't end up with like really high SES numbers and Grass Valley end up with all of the low SES numbers. We really can hand, and that's what he did, right? He took those zoning lines and by hand kind of captured in a way that's equitable for our at-risk kids. So we've kind of done this for folks, but we also have parents for whatever reason, maybe they went to school and they want their kids to go to that school, or the babysitter lives down the block. And this gives a little bit of, rather than schools who might do a variance or other schools who don't, now when there's space, we'll allow that, we're required to allow that at all schools.
And it works first come, first served, right?
Yep, exactly. One thing to note too is once a transfer has occurred, so if I take my child and they're zoned for Sonoma and I ask for open enrollment to Grass Valley, that move is done. You don't get a redo the next year, like you have now moved, and that's the only move. Transportation, parents, if they choose to go to a school that's not their zone school, transportation isn't part of the package. They would, transport their own kids. And once we get this zoning piece finalized, that's when we'll open up. And it's actually not just the zoning finalized, it'll be a little more complicated than that, right? We're gonna have to really have our class sizes where we want them. So it'll take us a few weeks.
Know the numbers.
Should you move in this direction to figure that out. Okay, considerations. Do you love this? This is my favorite slide in the whole thing. I'm super happy it ends up on mine. So we have laughed instead of cried through this whole thing about what a timeline would look like. So Noelle at midnight created this.
Courtesy of Gemini, it helped me a little bit.
So the reason we want you to look at this is to really think about, like, I'm going to name off just a few things that are going to have to get done, right? Say in the first little tiny bit. We have secretaries right now who are working on confirming addresses, because one of the little speed bumps we've had already is when Anthony worked on some of the zoning, Jennifer Wilhite had to sit with him side by side because so many of our addresses are incorrect or incomplete, or people live in California or they have no physical address. I mean, we have lots and lots of errors. So we've already started the process, and our secretaries are great about this, of getting an accurate address in the system. And you guys, our system is super particular. If you misspell an address, that's a different address than if I live on, Lake Street and I spell it L-A-K, that's a different Lake Street than L-A-K-E. Those come up as different places. So it's very, very particular. If you put S-T instead of S-T-R-E-E-T, it wreaks havoc with pulling any kind of information.
So they're putting it all in consistently, right?
They don't show up on a map at all as a student in the school, and so I have to go, zoom in on their house and poke a little dot, and then confirm address for all 500 of those that were.
But our secretaries now are consistently like,
Well, initially it pulls from whatever the parent puts in their online registration.
gotcha.
Yeah, so we generally have them every time the parent conferences, we print out the student enrollment form and say, fix this if you're, and having that happen the next 3 days will be super helpful, because all our schools will have those forms going, if this is your correct address, fix it and write it correctly, and kind of
So
stuff.
that
And then we go back.
That timing worked out really well, right?
Yeah.
Like it was already going to be something that they were doing. Then secretaries would complete it. Then we need to roll up the students. We need to compare the zoning report to teacher allocations. We need to, should you choose to move in a different direction than what we're currently doing, Jennifer Wilhite's going to need to build new calendars that would include things like start times and end times and grade bands. And start times and end times have a touch point with transportation, right? So these are some pretty big ticket items before we even get to staffing, moving, fencing, all of those things. So we wanted you to see a timeline of the next 20 weeks, because we have, should you move to do this year, we have 20 weeks to get this done. Different people have asked, can we even do this? Is this unrealistic? yes, we can do this. However, something else won't get done, right? Like, I think everybody's gonna have to be on the same page with, yep, we can do it, but something goes off, right? You can't just keep filling the cup with all the new things you're gonna do. Something has to go to the back burner if you were to do this. We do think that feasibly we could do it, as long as something else kind of stops.
You had a comment?
As like a specific example, we may not wax force with the movement, so it's things like that.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, what kind of things?
Yeah.
going on
Yeah,
back
yeah,
there? Like,
I was thinking what Dustin was thinking,
Yeah.
not like me. Like I was thinking the movement, the things that they do, the painting, like
Yeah.
those things are gonna,
Yeah, absolutely.
For this
Waxing the floors, you know, I
Carpet in
think
the
that,
schools.
yeah.
I think about, you know, when we literally picked up Winnemucca Grammar School and moved to Grass Valley School, you guys, principals were pretty great about not putting in work orders, not calling in, like, we had the undivided attention of all of maintenance, all of, that entire department was devoted to that for, you know, that 7-day period. They weren't being called out to do a bunch of other things. So it would never impact safety, but I do think there's some, I don't know, some maintenance things, some work order things that probably won't get done in the summer that on other years maybe will.
It also took the support of not just maintenance, but having the Grass Valley and grammar staff moving the things.
Correct.
And our timeline's gonna make that very tricky, right? So, I mean, those are things to consider as well. All right,
And there's a sequence of events,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
You can't do this until you do that, and so, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, there are some things. Okay, so this next piece really sums up what you've seen. You've seen nearly everything that the committee has seen. We put up a few posters just so that you can see, you guys, the committee members were up and moving and talking and reading and comparing, and it was actually pretty cool to see kind of the evolution of thinking. Somebody used the words yesterday, so nobody actually wanted to come up and present. They assigned that to us. But here's the reason they gave. They felt like they are so passionate about this work, and that each of them has a horse in the race, right? That's the term that they use. We have a horse in the race, and they really did want to portray this in a very factual way based on everything that was put in front of them. So this is kind of what it boiled down to, the key points. So option one, remember, is that current piece. Student impact research, and you're going to see the same bullet points for each of these options. Research indicates we currently have the least effective model because of the transitions. It's disruptive to learning and social connections, according to research. Community support, if you look at those survey results, about 9% of survey respondents favored keeping that option. Fiscal impact is that, you know, around $1 million for that portable and to do any of the work that we need there. And there's some transportation challenges. It would require additional routes compared to other options. Longer travel times, you know, right now we have kids out 95 to go to Grass Valley School. And again, I don't know, I drive to Grass Valley all the time. It doesn't seem that far, but I don't know, if you're on a school bus, it might when you're getting up early.
We have some children who are on the bus for 45 minutes, don't we?
Hour and a half.
Yeah, it's longer than that.
Yeah.
So the middle school model, that would be moving the 6th graders over here. Student impact. Research indicates this model is less effective and requires transition support for 6 moving into a 7th, 8. Again, remember those 6th graders, that's that pivot point. Lower test scores and a lot of other negative impacts on that particular grade. Community support, we actually had the most support for this model in the parent survey. 56% of survey respondents favored this option. Fiscal impact is actually the largest. If were you to choose this, it will cost you the most. Rezoning is necessary, just like with you'll see that same thing in the third option. And nearly 80% of respondents, if there's a change, wanted to have that this coming year. Option 3 is the junior high model where it's a pre-K 6 and our elementaries and junior high stays at 8. Student impact, and again, we see student impact in all of these. Research indicate this model is the most effective. It provides leadership opportunities and more time to grow and mature. Community support is at 33% for that particular model. The fiscal impact here is the lowest at about 130,000, depending on what direction we went with fencing and playground equipment. And again, with this one, there is rezoning that's necessary, and respondents would like a change in 26, 27. So go back one, Colby.
So in this, we really tried to put a chart together of what would it look like in 26, 27, or what would it look like if we waited in 27 to 28? Do any of the committee members want to talk about what will really happen if we wait till 27, 28?
In the committee, we really talked a lot about the angst and the anxiety that all staff are feeling, and just the amount of choices that came up. We really had to stay narrowed and stay focused. And when we first started talking about it, people were bringing up multiple different ways that we could look at this, and it's just not feasible to look at every scenario out there. And so we really came to consensus as a committee and really determined that waiting another year was not beneficial, not just for kids, but also for staff, for family, and creating all of that. We really felt pretty strongly that moving forward next year would be our best route.
I think that's important to note because it is such a short timeline. We talked about that a lot too. This is a lot to accomplish in a short amount of time. But I think we've proved our staff with the gigantic move we already did once this year is willing to dig in and help with that if we have to do it. Now, before we move to the, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was mentioned in the committee, and I thought this was good. So we said, if we do it now, it's gonna be really messy. And someone else said, no matter when we do it, it's gonna be really messy.
And some funding pieces to think about is, like the Title I allocations, whether we make the move this coming year or the following year are still going to be impacted because it's an October 1 count. So now you're gonna be 2 years behind. There's just going to be factors behind that. The SPP stuff, we're still going to be looking at a 3-year window with those designations because of the way the system's set up, even if we change the grade bands now, or it just delays us by another year, right? Like, so there are those impacts.
I'd also like to add, when we think of our brain power up above with our central office, next year we have a great opportunity where we still have D in a partial capacity. But if we wait, we're going to be looking at maybe some changes in the central office. And so we could potentially have people moving into a new position, learning that position, and then also trying to address the changing of the schools then. Like, we have a good solid central office to guide us in that direction, and I think we should take note into that.
Thank you. Any other questions before I need a drum roll, please?
I can piggyback for a half hour on that, but just save that for later.
I just being on the committee, I was kind of just looking at the surface things. And then when you listen to Deanna and Noelle, and you're just going, holy smokes, there is so much involved in doing this and so many implications. And I think you've done a really good job putting all those pieces together and showing us, what's most beneficial, whatever we decide.
That's leading to a drum roll.
That was it.
Come on, people. All right, so here's what the committee recommends based on every factor that we addressed. That we had a total of 18. We only had 12 voting members. Deanna and I did not vote last night. Lori also didn't want to vote because she knew she would have an opportunity to vote here. And so there were 12 members that recommended that we move to a K-6 model, while retaining the junior high to be 7-8, and we transition next year into the 26-27. And here's why. Remember when we told you we made them vote? Not only did they have to do an option, but we wanted, why did they say this? Here comes the testimonials. Equitable school sizes, research says it's best for kids, keeps kids younger longer, fiscally responsible. So that was said a ton of times. Based in research, less transitions, better overall test scores, better behavior, and emotional stability for 5th and 6th grade. And the last really talks about those special populations. What it really shows is kids that are economically disadvantaged who are enrolled in those schools in a K-6 situation grade span actually outperform those that are enrolled in those smaller grade spans with more transitions. So this kind of encompassed all those 12 comments in these 3 testimonials. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you guys for all your work in the committee.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do have a question. Yeah. But I don't know if they can answer it. It's probably a question. You know, we had a public comment today about, you know, staying at the site schools, not disrupting the morale. We already have disrupted the morale. We already changed a school. We completely shut a school down. So for me, I don't know how it works with the negotiated agreement. Obviously, we did our staffing plan last time. Everyone has a position, so I don't know that it has to be this free for all of, well, I want to go here now because I don't like the decision that was made. And I'm not saying that that's what that teacher was saying by any means. I'm just saying that, you know, we have a plan. We're starting different things. If that's the way we go, and I don't.
Yeah, and we met, Melinda and myself and Mr. Renteria and Dustin met this morning
Okay.
and have a process that we believe is the fairest we can come up with. Like, you're in a situation where not everybody's gonna be happy, right? And we all acknowledge that walking in.
Well, and
But we think we went from half to only maybe like 10% of people being happy
Well,
with
and
us,
I
so-
just know that was a thing that was brought up when we had talked about
Yeah.
even talking about this or saying, hey, we want this, and I didn't think that was part of the committee, but more of an association
Yeah.
thing, so that was my question.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to say thank you guys for everything. I know we sprung it on you, we kind of mentioned it here and there throughout our talks. I know that I really pushed it because I did look up things and saw the same things that, you know, you guys gave us available for research. So thank you for all your hard work, and I know it was lots of hours and early mornings and late nights.
But it's really all of these people.
Yeah, no, I am, everybody.
No, I was gonna echo that. I really appreciate all the work you guys have done, because I honestly have never even looked at changing these models or considered it in the past, and I felt a little, you know, out of place at the last meeting, even talking about it, because I still wanted to get more information. Every ounce of information, and I've really deliberated on this a lot. Every ounce of information that I was coming up with came up with exactly what all of you guys came up with, and I was literally blown away. I didn't walk into it with any preconceived notions, and I was shocked that the K through 6th model was probably my least favorite when I started researching, but I was shocked at how effective that's been in all across the country. There's a ton of data and how well it's done for the kids. My biggest thing for our kids is I want to see higher test scores. That is huge for me. It really, I want them to be safe. I want them to be happy. I want to see higher test scores. And that was just repeated over and over and over again with that model. And I really appreciate you guys bringing all this together. And then all the questions I had in my head, like, okay, what's Anthony going to do with buses? And what are how much capacity do we have in each individual school? You guys added all that stuff in, and for everyone who was involved in that, I really appreciate it. It was a ton of information. It was everything I needed. So thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, the SEL piece sticks out a lot. And I think that's a big deal, and something I really didn't dig into or consider. I mean, until we went through the grammar school thing, I don't know that any of us were, I mean, maybe.
No,
I wasn't thinking about this model at all. So it's been eye-opening, but the SEL piece is a big one, because I think when kids feel accepted and they're secure and they're safe, they're obviously gonna learn better, so that was good data to see.
I'd just like to compliment again, Noel and Deanna, guys, for all your work, and the committee as well, because when I walked into the room with the committee, this room was full of very opinionated people. Okay? It was all very, very, very strong people. And in the end, they put their biases aside, their opinions aside, okay, and I came to a consensus. And I really appreciate that, because that's hard to do. Yeah. Everybody had an opinion.
Great work, guys.
Yeah, I appreciate the amount of work you guys all accomplished in such a very, very short amount of time. I do, just because it was brought up too, I do have a question. So on the staffing, how does it work since we're totally if we were to totally change schools, basically, does it stay? Like, do the site teachers get a choice first and then it moves through, or how does that work, I guess?
What we ended up doing was isolating the 2 schools that were affected with the movement the most, which would be grammar and French 4, and then giving them options, and then moving down to teachers that might be affected at grade levels, where there's overstaffed, at some schools now, and then moving on to just that voluntary transfer piece. And what's gonna be nice is we kind of feel we'll get most people placed in a pretty, kind of in the grade band in school that they choose, just because we have a lot of openings right now too, which is cool. So there's a lot of selection and a lot of options for people. But yeah, prioritizing the 2 affected schools first, and then moving down that chain. And giving them time to choose, and the next group, then the next group, so.
And Melinda, that'll all work with the negotiated agreement?
No, our negotiated agreement does not have any language to
No,
address
it does.
this, so we are thinking outside the box. We have NSCA helping you guys as well. What we came up with this morning, I think, is probably the least impactful or the most fair. One thing I did want to point out for the ones watching on YouTube and whatnot is we need to acknowledge that this is going to affect a huge percentage of the teachers in the schools, because you're going to be moving classrooms.
Yep.
Because you're not just dumping 5th and 6th grade into these open classrooms. There's gonna be whole reassignments and moving of classrooms, so. Anybody who thinks that they are not going to be affected by this, better start thinking again.
Everyone's gonna feel the impact of it. If this is the way we go, that's how it's, the reality of it, you rip the Band-Aid off.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not doing anything that violates the agreement.
No, because there's nothing in the contract.
All right.
And that's why the committee did not touch that. Yeah, stayed out of that lane, because that was not our lane.
Yes.
And
No.
so, I think,
That is
well, the only point I'd say is the one missing data piece is the amount of movement it will take in the teacher piece. That's not represented in here. But they have to do that first. That's not something we can even point to you.
And we did talk about like initial discussions, do you just open everything? And we kept coming back to, we do have some culture we want to hang on to in our buildings, and
We ran through multiple different kinds of scenarios to the point that we were confused as to what we were even talking about. And every time we think we have it figured out, something else came up, and I'm not guaranteeing that that's not going to happen with what we have, but I do feel very comfortable with where we're sitting right now.
Okay. Anybody else have any further questions? Any further discussion? Then I would entertain a motion.
I will motion to move forward with the model of K through 6 with the least fiscal impact. as presented.
I'll second.
You might want to specify.
Oh, in the 26, 27 school year.
I'll still second.
Ron, will you close your shade?
Yeah.
Or put your hands up. Either way, the sun is right in my eyes.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Well, guys, thank you.
And the work?
Good luck.
Now you're back to work.
Yeah, I think we're going back.
Everybody wants to be breastfed.
Summer vacation's over.
Yeah. Sorry, we canceled your summer vacation.
Also,
The
if you guys need help.
most kick-ass teams.
Yeah.
Pressure. You guys gotta be there.
Teamwork makes the dream work, let's don't be afraid to reach out.
We're
We would
willing
all be
to
happy to help.
whatever. We need help with classrooms.
We got trucks and trailers. Thank you, everybody, thank you, committee. Dee, I believe you're staying, correct?
I'm staying right here.
Moving on to item 2, discussion and review of the HCSD pre-K and early childhood program.
Well, yeah, you guys have noted me staying here with us. You guys have asked me a lot of questions about pre-K. I have some answers. I'm gonna probably learn just as much as you guys tonight from this presentation, but I wanted to have that opportunity for you to stick around, share everything with you, and potentially ask all your pre-K questions that you need. So, Deanna, I don't think I pulled your presentation up. It was too busy pulling in over them, so give me just a second. All right. The floor is yours.
Okay, so I'm here really to talk about, we use Nevada Ready Pre-K and Pre-K kind of synonymously. Nevada Ready Pre-K is the grant that pays for our 4-year-old Pre-K program. So on that next slide, Nevada Ready Pre-K has been in place for about 8 years, around 8 years. The iterations have kind of changed, the funding source has changed a little bit, but we've benefited from it for quite a while now. So Nevada Ready Pre-K is a state-funded pre-K program that serves primarily 4-year-olds. And when I say 4-year-olds, I mean 4-year-olds who are in the year before their kindergarten year, right? And in previous years, if you've listened to me, I'll talk about 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds because we've had funding opportunities in the past that would pay for that. So we had additional teachers who were doing 3-year-olds as well as 4-year-olds. This year, we didn't have that opportunity, it was just for 4-year-olds. And the way the grant works, it's for public entities like public schools, but also Boys and Girls Club benefits from Nevada Ready Pre-K. We probably have community places, I'm not sure that Small Wonders does, but there are private preschools that can also apply for this money. And you all kind of have the same set of rules, and I'll go over the rules in just a little bit. So, benefits to students, right? We always want to be kind of students first, right? One of the biggest benefits is early literacy growth. We know from lots and lots of research that the sooner kids are exposed to some kind of literacy skills, and for our littles, that means singing and nursery rhymes and being read to and having some pre-literacy opportunities. We have to have a curriculum. There's the state kind of lets us choose. We use creative curriculum because it's aligned to our comprehensive assessment. We know that opportunities in pre-K improve our social emotional skills, which you can probably talk to lots of kinder teachers who maybe have kids who don't have that pre-K opportunity. It makes a difference for our kids. And then kindergarten readiness. We kind of go back and forth. I think, what are we doing this year? I think we're using a form of our pre-K, their comprehensive assessment is called TS Gold. And the assessment that the state has chosen for pre-K entrance is portions of TS Gold. So there's a real connection between the two. And our kindergarten teachers then have an opportunity to look at where were our kids in pre-K and how are they coming in? And then we can also pull data for, did it make a difference? If you were in a pre-K program in Humboldt County, are your scores, how do they compare to kids who maybe didn't have that same opportunity? So now we have kind of a level playing field for the assessment that we use. Benefits to families. The state has really put a lot of emphasis on how pre-K benefits families. It's a free or reduced cost preschool. It supports families and it builds family engagement. So when I talk about family engagement, some of this is like there's required elements, right? It's required that we offer an opportunity to parents to do a family engagement survey. It's a little uncomfortable how it's done, right? Like parents are given a link, they go on, they can fill it out. It's in English, it's in Spanish. In the past, we used to bring in parents, like in conference week, and kind of help them through. Because this family engagement survey is a product of Harvard University. It's a great piece, but the questions are complicated, right? And it asks a lot of things about, does your teacher reach out to you? Do you talk to your teacher? Do you know a lot about the curriculum? Do you get help with social emotional skills? But it also will ask things like, do you have frequent opportunities to talk to other parents about the curriculum? That's always an area that we don't do well in. And part of the reason we don't is what we found with our pre-K parents is they want to come for something with their kids, right? They want to see their kids perform. They want to do an activity with their kids. They don't really prioritize doing an activity that's with other adults. So I don't know, maybe it's an area that we should improve upon, or maybe we can find better ways to kind of weave that into opportunities, but our parents want to be there for their kids. They want to watch them, they want to do things with them. And that really shows up in the parent engagement surveys that we do. And we have just a phenomenal group of teachers. We currently have 5 pre-K classrooms, so 5 4-year-old classrooms, 3 at Sonoma, and 2 at Grass Valley. With this vote, we're going to have to think a little bit about how do we spread those 5 out. My guess is just from a population density, I would say we'll probably end up with 2 at Frenchford, 2 at Sonoma, 1 at Grass Valley. That's probably how that'll pan out. This eligibility page. So this is a non-negotiable. So with this grant, you're going to see on this slide and the last slide, there are a lot of rules around this grant. One is that you're age 4 by August 1st, so it's the same rule as for a kindergartner, just 1 year previous. We have some families who say, hey, my kid's actually old enough for kindergarten, but I want them to go to pre-K. I don't think they're ready for kindergarten. We don't have an opportunity to say, sure, like we can sign them up. It's not, they don't meet the eligibility criteria. It works the other way too. I have an advanced 3-year-old, I think they'll fit. They probably do, but unfortunately we sign assurances that say they can't come in. So I want to talk about the 4 eligibility criteria. The state has come up with these. These 4 pieces have been in place since the last legislative session. And this is how we prioritize enrollment. The first 3 are what we have used this year for enrollment. The 4th piece has been in here, but the State Board of Education just in the last month approved the actual language for the definition of this. So we really only use the first 3. One is an income piece. So for families who are living at 250% of the federal poverty level, and families have to prove that, right? It's pretty intense how they have to show what their income level is. Students with disabilities, and dual language learners. And note that I say dual language learners, we don't term our kids who speak another language. When they're in a pre-K system, we don't have a way to give them the WAPT and call them EL. So it's very strategic that they're actually called dual language learners. So those 3 things right now kind of get you in the door, if there's space. So we currently have 92 seats. That's what the state pays for. That gives us 8 other spots, because there can be 20 kids in each classroom, 8 kids who don't have to meet these criteria. So, I think word gets out that, hey, why is there a teacher child in there? Or why is, Deanna's kid in there? It's because there's 8 slots where you don't have to meet criteria. In addition to that, the count, so when the state gives us this money, they do, and previously they've done a December 1 count. If we haven't filled by December 1st, and they're not going to take the money away from us, and just know there have been years where they have taken money away, not from us, but other districts, we've always been really careful. Nobody new comes in unless you meet these until December 1st. And on December 1st, we go, they've been counted, we got our money, are there any seats? And then we take anybody on the waiting list, and my staff gives them a call and says, we have a space, it's at Grass Valley, would you like it? And then we open it up in like chronological order, I guess, on the wait list, we give parents a call. Part of the problem with how we've placed kids previously is we open up enrollment about now. And a lot of times parents won't know until July because we're trying to hit that number, right? That 92 number. So we want to hold it open as long as possible to get as close to that 92 as we can, because there are implications. And I think we're fortunate in the last 4 years, no district has had money removed from them. But historically it's happened. And I think they realized the damage that was done. And the reason money was taken is if we calculate the best that we can based on space, our SEL numbers, things like that. But if I said, hey, we can come up with 200 students and I take all of that seat, they call it seat money. I take all of that, that prevents somebody else, that prevents a Clark or a Washoe from having that money and actually placing kids who meet the criteria. So we try to be as close as we can. The kicker here is this fourth one, this historically underserved. This has been in place for the last 2 years, well, the last year and a half. Historically underserved, they really ended up using the federal definition, which means homeless, foster, kids who are being raised in a home with an incarcerated parent. So for Washoe, for Clark, for bigger districts, though, that's what historically underserved will mean, some minority populations. But it also means remote worlds, like under the federal guidelines, and that's us, that's Humboldt County, meaning every single 4-year-old who lives in Humboldt County will, in theory, not in theory, will be eligible for this program. However, if we're committed to meeting the needs of our at-risk kids as a priority, what we'll do is prioritize those first 3, and then look at the fourth one, and we'll do it the same that we would do in December in the past. The benefit is families will know sooner, right? They'll know by May if their child's in the program, what school they're in, and potentially even if we have teachers hired, who their teacher is. So I think that part is kind of the benefit part. We won't be waiting till December to fill those extra seats. They'll all be filled. And one little piece of kind of background information is the pre-K department of the state, their goal is to have universal pre-K. That's what they want to see. That every single 4-year-old in this entire state will have an opportunity to attend public pre-K. And all of the districts have said, that's great, but there's barriers that aren't just money, right? Like, okay, give us a head count of money. That won't give us the space that we need, and it won't give us the certified teachers, right? Like, we know now that if the state had said, Deanna, how much money do you want? And that is what they say, tell us how many seats. We could have said, well, we have 400 kindergartners. How many kindergartners do we have? Maybe 300?
No, about 200.
200.
Yeah.
So we could have said, we want 200, because we know there's probably going to be about 200 4-year-olds out there. But we didn't say that. We said we want 100, because we know we could come up with 5 slots. Can we come up with 10? No. Like, in any of those configurations you just looked at, we don't have space to double the number of pre-K offerings. However, even hitting 100, we have about half of our kids who are going to have access to pre-K, which is pretty cool. And then that certified teacher also becomes a barrier. And it's the same barrier that every other district faces, right? Space and teachers. So with that endeavor to try and do universal pre-K, these are some of the reasons that the state is really pushing for this. When the state pushed this, when the pre-K department really pushed this up to the legislators, they did a lot of research around childcare costs for families. You know, this is a savings for some of our families, and remember, we're talking our at-risk families of between $8,000 and $12,000 a year. That's a huge savings for families. It increases their ability to work and reduces financial strain, which in turn improves SEL skills for our kids. Okay, this last page, frequently asked questions. these are kind of the rules, right? Like whenever we write for this grant, there's a whole set of things that we agree to. And we can't violate these. Last year we were funded for 92 seats and that was to the tune of $798,000. This year we put in for all 100, meaning we know every kid would qualify, so we might as well fill all 5 classrooms with 20 kids. We just got our allocation, it's $841,000. That funds all 5 teachers and gives us a little bit of supply money, and then it also gives us a little bit of money to buy the curriculum and the required comprehensive assessments. So that's all built in there. What it doesn't allow for, so pre-K kids need a lot of aids, right? And aides, like any of our other staff, any of these people need a break, they need a lunch. So just to say that we're gonna have a teacher and an aide that might be funded in this, that's never enough aides. Again, they need a break, they need lunch, if somebody's gone, we violated this because the rule is a 20-2 ratio. We need 1 teacher and paraprofessional. Like, it's essentially 10-1, 20-2. If you've got 20 kids in a room, you need 2 adults. So the way we make that work is to do what we call braided funding. So I write a special ed grant, it's just it's not that small of a grant, it's like a $120,000 grant that funds early childhood aids. And that gives us the flexibility in our schools. Like if, I don't know if we have a principal left in here, but if a principal tried to actually staff a pre-K with only 2 people in each class, it isn't enough. So that gives us a little bit of flexibility to not only provide additional services for students with disabilities in an inclusive environment, but then you can kind of meet those required pieces from an HR standpoint. So I mentioned that we have 5 across, it's that 20-2. Teachers also, part of the assurance is teachers have to be certified. They need a bachelor's degree, they need to be endorsed in early and have an early childhood teaching license. Trying to think of any other rules with that. They have to be 4. So those are kind of these are the things that a lot of times people will ask me about. They'll say, how about if we do 21 kids? Or no, like I actually sign on the dotted line and say, we're not gonna have 21 kids, we're gonna have 20 kids. And even that, imagine 24-year-olds running around, you want 2 people, you don't want 21 of them, 20 to chase around. This was our first year of dividing after a very long time. We've had an early childhood learning center out at Grass Valley for a number of years. Then sent the kids back to their neighborhood schools. Then collapsed a school. It's been kind of a wacky year, but the teachers have been great. I mean, they've done the very best they can. And pre-K teachers have a lot of stuff, right? Because little kids need stuff. They need things to build their gross motor skills, their fine motor skills, things to play with, to learn how to play. So one thing I didn't put on here, and really just occurred to me today, there's a piece of legislation out there that would increase the age level for kids with developmental disabilities. So when we talk about kids with disabilities in a pre-K environment, the vast majority would have a developmental delay. And that particular eligibility category, once they're 6, they age out, meaning they either go on some other kind of eligibility. Maybe they have a speech and language impairment, they may have autism, they may have some other disability, but they don't go from a DD in pre-K to a learning disability, like a specific learning disability. And what's before the legislature right now is, let's increase the age of DD from 6, let's change it from 6. And you guys, the thought behind that is, we have all of these children in Winnemucca alone, half of it, and it's actually even higher than that in Lander, who potentially their very first exposure to any kind of school, real school, is as a kindergartner. So if they come in as a 5 or 5.5-year-old and they're not found eligible for anything until partway through their 5-year-old year, they might be found eligible as a kid with a developmental delay. They have to be off of that IEP in 6 months. It's not enough time. Our kids are fortunate because half of them are gonna have this pre-K experience where they're either getting services or we can identify them earlier. And that doesn't come up in any of the assurances, but for us, it is a really big benefit that we have half of our kids coming in. So whether the other half are in another pre-K environment, maybe they're a Boys and Girls Club, maybe they're somewhere else, but we still have a number of kids who kind of walk in the door with maybe no exposure because they're being babysat by grandma or who knows, older brothers and sisters. Do you have questions about that one? That one kind of has a lot of the meat in it.
I don't know, I'm just, all the stuff you're telling me, I mean, it sounds like our pre-K system is set up for, challenge students, whether it be developmentally, or disabilities, English as a second language, or potentially in that case, no English at all. Things like that, so, or at-risk youth, things like that. It seems like the entire program is set up for that. Is that the case? Because that's something that I have never heard before. That's something that when parents ask, why can't my kid go to pre-K? I mean, why aren't we communicating that? Because my kids wouldn't be able to go to pre-K.
Now they would. Now they live in
Well,
Hudson
but
County.
I would hope that there's probably 100 kids out there that have all the other qualifications as opposed to mine.
Exactly. So, Lonnie, I think it's all about funding. So when this.
I get the funding, but I'm just like, I want to get to the crux of it. That's why we're getting funded, because these are things. We can't offer it to everybody in our county, which everybody in our county qualifies.
Yes, yes.
So it looks to me like it's centered around that. I think that's something that needs to be communicated, because frankly, I may not want to send my kids, if they're going into an at-risk population. Not to say that we can't help these other kids and stuff. I think it's a great thing that we're helping them out, and that we're trying to attack this early on before they get into school. I think that's awesome. It's a wonderful thing. It's why they fund this in that sense. But giving parents other options and letting them know, I think that's an important thing. And I'm not sure why this hasn't been communicated. This is the first I've heard about it. Maybe I'm new, but
I heard about
I
it,
don't
like,
think I am.
mine are in third or sixth now, and I knew about it when my kids were
Yeah,
starting.
well, I didn't hear about it when my daughter was going through kindergarten. She didn't utilize the pre-K program, obviously, but it's one of those things that it's interesting to me.
Well,
And if that's what the program is, then we should build this out.
And Lonnie, actually in our publicizing information we do, like it's really clear in the flyers that we changed it a little bit this year. So we've always said we're eligible for qualifying students, and then we list what the qualifying factors are. And we've actually found almost the reverse of what is true, like parents will do anything they can to fit one of those at-risk criteria. Like, a lot of times we'll have a family come in and, I don't know, there's a code that you'll hear, like, I have a communication concern, right? Because up until this year, you had to have one of those qualifying pieces. So it's like, well, let's say if there's a communication disability or, some kind of speech and language impairment, because it's kind of the way in the door. The income piece, they straight out have to provide some kind of verification. There are some concerns, right? And I want to acknowledge that what you're saying is accurate, right? Like, and this is part of the problem when you look at the data, right? Mm-hmm. So I mentioned earlier, like looking at the exit data for kids leaving the program and then comparing it to other kids. What we always have to keep in mind is this program is like primarily for at-risk students, right? There is some at-risk factor that they have. So it's not like you can just go straight across the board and go, why aren't their scores better? It's like, well, their scores aren't better because there are risk factors that have to be considered. And there is, I think, a beauty in a heterogeneous population, right, of students in a classroom. So, which is why I think teachers, when it comes to December 1st, it's like, yeah, fill my class up. Because that's our opportunity to give a little bit more of a variety and have a few kids in who might not have a risk factor that the majority of the kids have. So that's, and over time, it's probably been fairly equitable, but this year that was a little bit of a challenge, to tell you the truth. The vast majority of our kids had some risk factor.
Anybody have any other questions?
I do have a question for you. So I've had parents call me and I explained to them what the criteria basically are. As soon as it opens, get in so you are on the list. I've had parents tell me that one year, because they would come in young, but they didn't qualify the next year. And that would make sense that if you have more of at-risk students. But have they ever gone in at the beginning and then been removed? Is there a halfway mark or a reset that they would come out? They get the first half but not the last half, or?
No, not during the year, but I'll tell you what did happen this past year is we had funding for 3-year-olds, right? And kids could be any kid, like their risk factor could have been they were a dual language learner, or they were atypical, right? We had room for 20 kids. If it didn't fill, it filled with kids, I just call them typicals, kids without a risk factor. We had funding to do full day 3-year-old programs. So this year there's 0 funding for 3-year-old programs. If that kid didn't turn 4 before this year started, then there is no program. But no, we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't remove a kid partway through. Okay. That would be mean. We don't do that. So key takeaways. It's a high impact investment. It supports students and families, and it expands equitable access for at-risk kids.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deanna. Any further questions?
Insightful, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a long evening for you to hang out with us.
I know, I was gonna say, I'm trying to drink the water to. Good, get through this.
Half a day and I got a nap.
Thank you, Deanna. Appreciate you bringing that information to us. Thank you.
Moving on to item 3, discussion and possible action to review and approve the design development proposal from McElhaney and Associates for possible action.
Okay, thank you. We had the opportunity to hear from Mr. McElhaney himself at the last board meeting. And I know the board, at the time, we didn't have the quote from him, asked, explaining to us how we get from that 25% drawing out to 100% drawing. So since that time, he's provided us with that quote. So we'll take a minute to review that and I'll answer some questions for you. So what this does, this quote here, is just to go from the design development all the way out to getting us construction document and phases for renovation of the Winnemucca Grammar School. As far as the actual cost, there's a cost of $57,030. This is to, again, move from the design level through stamped structural calculations, drawing, and specifications to move forward at the school site. Understand there will be additional costs associated with this. This would have to come from the architects. So most hopefully H&K would continue to work with us. John and Brett are working on quotes in addition to this with them as well. But majority of talking, I actually spoke with Brett today, and he thinks the majority of his calculations and drawings will address the needs for that renovation project. So it should keep our architectural fees down quite a bit when these are done. And then an additional cost on here would be a cost of, and then notice, up to $26,000 with prior authorization. And this is for Brett to come out and support the construction phase when we start to actually renovate the building. So these are costs we would see right now. These would be costs of job site visits, answering contractor questions when the work actually begins. So what we're looking at now, and he kind of wrote this quote out funny. So this is our current contract. This has already been paid.
Okay.
I don't know why he added this in. I called and confirmed. I confirmed with Mike. This has been paid. So the quote we're looking at is at this time $57,030, and this $26,000 would be paid at a later date when the actual construction piece begins. But we're looking at a total of $57,30 to get him working and get those construction drawings out to us in a timely fashion. So.
And then we'll be shovel ready. We're ready to go.
No,
See, that's where I get all.
I know. Well, we'll be close. We'll be a lot closer than we are
Somebody
now.
else to do something else.
No, there's gonna at some point still need to be, just my understanding from John, some work with the architects to add some additional drawings, probably some more scaled down things. In talking to Brett, I don't think it's gonna be a lot, but we don't know because we haven't, H&K hasn't come out to have the opportunity to look at the school and look at the project yet. And they wanted to come out first and actually do a walkthrough and view it before they gave us their quote on the architectural piece. But again, Brett thinks with this, he'll get pretty close without needing too much more from the architectural side. So this, we would be close.
That's been my concern all along. We pay these guys, then we gotta pay somebody else for this, and when do we ever get going? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought at the last meeting, that was the very specific ask, was that we had a, shovel-ready document and amount that it's gonna cost us to get there by today.
Yeah, but we don't have it from H&K. We have it from Brett, which is what we asked you, but what we don't have would be that architectural piece that potentially could come into play at some point.
Colby?
Yeah.
This money has to come out of our general fund.
Now, this one
We're
here
out
would
of our
most likely,
7 million.
we don't have that bond piece yet. This would come out, we luckily have some left over from the HVAC project is where I think we would pay for this portion out of. We did a smart thing when we pulled that HVAC and put it in LGIP, which allowed us to gather interest over the course of the last year. And so we have some of that interest available that we could put it in a bond. This wouldn't come out of gen fund. So depending on architectural fees, we're getting close, and then depending on the board meeting, what did we select for the HVAC project, we're getting close to being out of that bond money.
Well, then it's hard to,
So
we haven't even picked the HVAC stuff yet.
I have another question. Design services, advancement of ASCE is not 41 analysis. Are we still doing seismic analysis on this building?
No, so this is what's already been, this is the document he's already delivered.
The $57,000
Yes, so
is what we have to pay now. And it says advancement of ASCE 41 analysis,
Right.
which is a seismic construction evaluation.
But I
So
think
he's
with-
already provided that to us. That's the ASCE 41 advancement analysis he's given us. That's that 140-page document. This is to move it to a retrofit structural design.
Okay.
So I think that's all it's saying is that it's the advancement from where we already are, what he's already given to.
Yep,
It
stamp.
says advancement, or it says advancement of and retrofit structural design from SD level through 100% savings.
Well, the analysis.
100% construction design. So are we getting 100% construction design on all of the ASC 41 recommendations from the previous report? That's what I read.
Yeah, he's getting the list that we talked about at the last board meeting. The structural of the wall, the work with the foundation pieces that we have concerns about, and then the tying in the roof to all those pieces, all that.
So we're getting a finished plan for the structural, the seismic structural advance or plans that he previously gave us, which is, I just want to make it very, very clear, because I've been told 3 times now that none of these presentations have anything to do with seismic reinforcement.
Well, if you've been to the building lately, you can also see that they.
I'm just clarifying what's been told to me.
But you gotta go back, you guys,
That's where
this
it
was based on this
started.
earthquake years ago. This is the report
where
that he
it
provided. Yeah.
No, I
So we're
understand.
trying to
I'm
get to
just
the point
saying,
where we
what's
can
been,
do this.
I've got the emails that say this has nothing to do with that.
But I think.
So if I'm getting emails that say this has nothing to do with that, I expect this to have nothing to do with that.
But
We had
but
to-
otherwise, we're starting from square one
No, I
versus
get it.
we're
I
still
get it.
advancing.
I just want to
that's where we're at.
have clear communication that if it has something to do with it, which it clearly does, I want that communicated appropriately.
So it's communicated appropriately. We got to where we are because this is why we did this. The seismic thing came in 2022 because we were mandated to do it. We picked the lowest school. We're here. We're here now. If you go to the school, you could go now. I've been since our last board meeting.
I look at it every day.
Have you gone inside it?
It's
I'm
locked,
telling
so
you.
yeah, but I have been inside it, I have been under it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
know
that's
the
how we
school
got
looks
to where we're at.
And
And
it
it's
is-
worse,
it
and
is worse.
it's way worse than it was when we moved people out of there. So there are things still happening just from it settling and us not being in there.
So that's all I'm asking. Are we pursuing seismic construction or are we not? It says seismic construction on here. So if that's what we're pursuing, that's fine, because we have to go somewhere. We don't want to start all over. I get it. I just want people to be straight with what we're pursuing. Because there will be an impact. with that, when we get architectural plans, there will be an impact with the cost of the construction that we perform on the building. I want to make sure that when we approve something, I know what we're approving. That's all I'm asking.
And then I read this entirely different than you, Lonnie. I read this as, this is what's been provided to us. He is taking what he's provided, what you guys asked for last meeting, to the drawing phase. So I see this as a past, like a whole separate clause in this. And he listened to your responses 2 weeks ago, and now.
I hope he did. I'm not so sure.
Calculations and drawings.
But yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I just want to know what I'm voting on, so.
Yeah, it's the way it's worded is a little funky.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's how I read it as well.
But we had a whole conversation last time, so to me, that's where he went with it.
Yeah, it's advancement of what we discussed.
The issues came up because of it. So now we said, hey, you got 25% of the project of what you showed us was wrong, but now we need to have everything in construction and design so we can move forward.
Well, and if we don't feel that it's worded correctly, we can go back to him and like bring it back in 3 weeks, so. But I read this as two separate independent clauses in this statement.
Yeah.
What does that include? Does that include just foundation, walls,
No, that would include
diaphragm, or
all
does
the
that
big,
include everything we?
all that list last week that you
Okay.
presented with everything to us.
Well, and I think we've been really focused on, we need to fix the foundation, we need to fix the diaphragm. But we really probably need to focus on that list because it's not just that, it's everything. And if
Right.
we're gonna bring kids back into the school, we don't wanna bring them into something that's, oh, we fixed this, but this doesn't look good. Like, obviously, I'm not gonna be here probably by the time you guys go to vote on the construction and all of this. But why would we put kids in a school where we're just throwing some stuff up because we want it to be in that building because we need to be because it's been there for 125 years. We're gonna fix it, we need to fix it right so it's usable for another 100 years. And yes, that means we have to get new little tiles that aren't 100 years old. You can still get stuff that looks similar, but there's stuff in that building now that cannot continue to be in that building. It's falling apart.
And it has,
We have
it's
roofs
shifted
coming off outside.
a lot
It's
in the last few
shifted,
months, yeah.
yes, a ton.
Yeah, and that's my concern. You know, we talk about putting a Band-Aid on everything. I don't wanna put a Band-Aid on it. If we're gonna do it, let's do it right. And like he said, 50 to 100 years.
Yes.
I'm pretty good with that,
Yeah, I think,
you know, with that old building, if we do it right. But I don't wanna put a Band-Aid on it and 7 years down the road, we've got another occurrence of $2 million.
It's,
Well, I like to make it clear, I'm not in any desire to put a Band-Aid on anything. Lifting a building or shoring a building and putting an entirely new foundation under it is far different from putting a Band-Aid on something. What I'm trying to figure out here is we've all had conversations, we've all talked about the seismic stuff. The same language, it's in the body of the regarding structural engineering services change order, design development and construction documents phases for ASCE 41 analysis of Winnemucca Grammar School. So we are pursuing the recommendations for the seismic construction and reinforcement of that building. So we've had a lot of conversations on to quit pursuing that and pursue fixing the building on what needs to be fixed. We are still pursuing that according to this document.
Yeah,
So
I don't
we need
read
to
it that
rewrite
way.
that.
I mean, it's in there. So I mean, that's regardless of how we read it, that's what we're signing off. 'Cause
What we're
that's-
signing off on
It's
is
in
that
two
we
separate places on the
started,
deal.
we started with, it's saying, like, phases for ASCE 41 analysis. That is how this all started. So this is a service change order for what we've already started.
because that's what we asked him for last time. He said that was 25% of the project.
Yes, correct.
It was,
Yeah.
if we wanted to continue with a change order with
Okay.
this
I'm just
whole thing of.
pointing it out and clarifying.
Well, again, I mean, you guys have the option of voting it down, or we can go back and get more specific letter wording from him, but I see it as two separate items, but.
And bottom line is, if we're gonna move forward with it, we need the 100% drawings, is how I see it. So, does anybody have any further questions or comments? Then I would entertain a motion.
My only comment is that I don't want a whole bunch of money to be coming out of the general fund. Obviously, this isn't, but that's something that I will be watching. If we have to keep fishing out money, we don't have the money for moving forward, then we have to wait till we have it. I feel like that's where I am, and I need to be clear on that because financially, our students would be impacted and our teachers, and that's really where it lies right now. And a building is a building. Students need to be taught. We have a solution. We're changing things and we can figure it out down the road. But right now, fiscally being responsible, we can't just keep throwing money at contracts and, hey, we need this, we need that, and we're $200,000 in the hole and gotten nowhere, which I'm not saying that's where we're at. I'm just making a statement that I do not want to be in that position.
And I agree with you. I do think we need to get to where we can figure out what this is actually gonna cost us, like if
Yes.
because bottom line is, yes, we can do nothing and wait, but at the same time, we are on a time limit,
Yeah.
because if we do nothing, that building has 1 to 3 years.
If that.
Yeah, if that, if that.
And that's been my premise since, I think the McDermott meeting 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We talked about it.
So I think we just need to get to where we have drawings where we can say, okay,
this
is what it's actually gonna cost us to fix this building or not.
Correct. I agree. I just wanted to be clear that
Yes.
chambers
Just need to
are not gonna be there.
Leave our general fund alone.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
because we don't have a lot of
Yeah,
that.
because we don't have excess.
Leave
And
our
for me,
money
that
alone.
needs to go to the kids.
There's building money and then there's student money.
Yes.
Correct.
Student.
Absolutely, there's two different pots for sure. And then luckily we have some
Yeah, and we
fund
have
money
some
left
now.
over.
I'm
Yeah.
just simply saying.
Yeah, thankfully,
The
right?
focus needs to be on the kids.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the design development proposal for McElhaney and Associates.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
I agree.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to item 4, discussion and review of moving Winnemucca Grammar School to inactive status for the 26-27 school year for possible action.
Okay, thank you. And this was something that was tabled from last time because I think this was part of the discussion where everybody wanted to come back and to hear the different solutions. Since that time, I have had time to meet with the state, so it probably ended up being a good thing that it was tabled because it gave me a chance to hear what any potential, pitfalls there would be from the state's perspective. It's funny, I got a little bit of different information than they did about how they don't know what to do. The school said people are doing this in basically every county in Nevada right now, consolidating schools and closing schools and moving things together. I know Washoe, Douglas, and everybody. Yeah, so Elko, I think, is in the same boat. So my information was a little different, but again, I wanted to make 100% sure there was no fiscal impact to us if we went to an inactive status for the 1 year over at grammar school. And I understood that from closing our rural attendance zone when we did that with denial. So in meeting with the state, they were absolutely able to confirm there's no fiscal impact in this whatsoever. It's all we would do is, like I said, have it inactive for the year. It wouldn't cost us any money. It wouldn't save us any money one way or the other. It's just, we're going to just be cost neutral in the thing. The other piece we talked about was just any changes that could be potential with, star ratings, things like that. And essentially, they said the exact same thing. Essentially, no, those kids are moving to another school. So we'd have the changes we talked about earlier, right? Where basically all our schools are going to have no star ratings, which maybe that's not a bad thing, like Noel said, for a few years. Yeah, start fresh. So there really is. The meeting lasted about 20 minutes with the state, and there's no negative impacts to making this move. I think honestly, we even moving it, staying, keeping it active could be a potential solution. But I think we know it's going to be close. I think it signals to the community, to the families up there that we're going to go. This is going to be a construction zone, and we need to get to work on it. And so, to me, it makes sense to just consider it as an inactive school for the school year. So. Then I'll leave that open to discussion or take questions.
I do have a question. Colby, you have any concerns with the way the building is now deteriorating on that, what is it, the southeast corner, of keeping people off of those grounds right now?
I'm a bit concerned. I think Brett was going to come back and install some crack monitors for us just to see how that building's moving. We were just to monitor some of those cracks we've seen and some of those bricks we've seen.
Yeah, some of those bricks are ready to fall out on that one corner.
Yeah, they are.
Well, the child's in there playing around or whatever.
which luckily on the backside, the gates are all locked.
Yeah, we have everything locked. We
Okay.
don't have staff
Maybe
there or
we
kids
should
there,
like a
so,
sign.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
maybe
thought about
about
that
yeah,
actually, so,
liability, you know.
yeah, I'm a bit worried about the liability bit. on this
Yeah,
one,
I think if
so,
we posted some stuff though.
Yeah.
That I think, I would like to talk to Rob about what
Yeah.
we could do
that's a
to
good idea.
save our liability.
Yeah, I agree.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we move Winnemucca Grammar School to inactive status for the 26-27 school year.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to item H, public comment. Is there any public comment this evening?
Just repeat mine.
Noted.
Thank you.
Seeing nothing further, we are changing board reports a little bit for our legal counsel versus having like going by individually. We're gonna start doing committee reports and then future agenda. So basically, item I will just be if anybody has anything to report from any of their committees. So does anybody have anything to report?
I will be bringing mine next week. I did attend the NSAB, and thank you, NASB, like I always say it wrong, meeting Friday afternoon. There was some good information, but my notes are a little scattered right now, so I will bring some information back to you guys next week.
Perfect. Anybody else have any other committee reports?
I went to that meeting on Saturday. Do you want to hear about that or no? Should I report that or is that
What was the meeting?
inappropriate? It was a,
The training.
NSAB,
Oh,
it was a
yes.
training meeting.
Yes, you can report on NASB.
Oh, we did
We
that?
said it, but we both said it wrong. NASB.
I don't know how to say it. You guys and your acronyms. I think the main body of the meeting was the portrait of a Nevada learner, which I mentioned a little bit earlier with Janice Case. It's an excellent presentation. I was able to participate that here in Winnemucca and then again Saturday. And it seems like that the state of Nevada wants to go to that, the whole state. My concern, and it was concern of other people as well, is it's not, when we go to that, like your goals, Colby, for the district, you know, and I voted for those goals, I'm in favor of those goals, but how do we measure how we're doing with those goals? It's hard to, they're not really measurable goals. How do you measure critical thinking? You know, how do you measure all of those kinds of things? And so we talked a lot about that. And there are ways to do that.
Yes.
And we could maybe talk about that later when we start talking about those goals. So we don't have to do that right now. The other thing was legislative stuff, which is very interesting to me. And they talked a lot about property taxes, that our property tax, the system's broken right now. What happens if you sell a house in Humboldt County? Well, you probably know this better than anyone. So if I'm wrong, help me out here. But if somebody sells a house in Winnemucca and their taxes are $4,000 a year, the people that buy the house, the taxes are still $4,000 a year. And they really want the legislator to pass a bill that there's a reset on property taxes. Because say if you buy your house, Colby, for $400,000 and you sell it for $600,000, those people are still gonna pay taxes on a $400,000 home right now.
It's because of how the system and the stuff we're required to use. It's not like it's like the state of Wyoming does that. They do a reset essentially, right?
Right.
But it's yes and no, but I don't think they also brought up how many abatements we give to new companies that come into like Washoe Story
Yeah,
in
right.
County.
And
Solar
an abatement is
abatements.
basically a tax deferment.
Correct.
Yes.
So you can give 10-year abatements on millions and millions of dollars. That revenue isn't coming in, and that's more revenue that you're gonna get than you're gonna get from property taxes. So if you talk to like anyone in our application, they'll tell you that, right?
Mhm.
You want them to come, but I mean, I can name about 5 different companies in Nevada right now that have abatements that.
Yeah.
So
And
you're asking homeowners essentially to pay more when you're asking billion-dollar companies to pay less.
Right, and it's almost like favoritism, you know, you've got
Yeah.
million dollar companies coming in, they don't pay any taxes, and we're sitting there paying our, you know,
Yes.
homeowners taxes.
Yeah.
So it's broken, and so they talked a lot about that, and they wanna talk about that in legislative session next year. then they talked, of course, about preschool funding. They were gonna talk about it, and the guy from Lovelock, his name is Dennis, he's the superintendent in Lovelock. I said to him, is this a time to bring up for pupil funding right now? He said, yeah, it is, so I brought it up. You know, and that's broken too, and I think they need to know that that's broken. And so they talked about a system where that, you know, right now, everybody's, you can run a school with 3,000 students in it for about the same amount of money as you can run a school with 1,000 students in it. And that's where we get hurt, okay? Because we only get money for 1,000 students and Clark's getting it for 3,000 students. And so, you know, we talked about maybe an equitable system where the rural schools, rather than getting, you know, 1% or the same amount as everybody else, we get 1.25 for each student. Does that make sense? In funding. So if everybody's getting $100 for each student, we get $125 for each student to make it more equitable, because that's where we're getting hurt right now. And so that's something that they want to bring up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because, you know, then the other stuff was just stuff that we talk about basically all the time: safety, artificial intelligence stuff, education workforce, we don't have enough teachers, and just stuff like that. And then the afternoon session was about school safety. And I think we follow those guidelines pretty well here in Humboldt. So that was kind of my report there.
Thank you, Lori.
And then, I don't know if I can mention it in this, because this is kind of a committee thing.
Yeah.
Not a committee, a committee of
I
one.
feel like that should have been a conversation with the board before you just decided to change it on a meeting. Maybe Rob should have put that out.
Yeah.
It silenced a lot of voices. Got nothing to talk about.
Correct?
Yeah.
But plenty
Good
of
job.
other entities do it, so.
But I do want to talk about this, because remember when I said, when we were talking about getting more money, and I just with you about this line, or Chloe, is, how about a gas tax? So I looked into this, and there's money out there. That we can apply for these kinds of things. I guess the county applied for a 3-cent gas tax. And that 3% goes to the county services. And it's possible that you can get benefit for cigarette tax, alcohol tax, you know, all those kinds of things. Yeah. Sorry, Lonnie, you're just giving you a hard time because you already mentioned kind of
property
somebody,
too.
but.
You're gonna get nail me from every direction.
But there's that money out there. And this is what I learned, that the maximum we can give, let me get my numbers straight here, is 3.64% of 100. Okay? And at Humboldt County, we're at 3.27%. So that's a 0.37% difference. That's money out there that we're not even asking for. Where other counties, they're maxing out on that. They're right at 3.64, except for us and Eureka County. And we're both sitting at 3.27. So there's money that we can apply for with tax. Gas, cigarettes, liquor, and then there's some that have acronyms attached to them, and I don't know what they are, so I can't say. But I just wanted to bring that up. That's a possibility, and we talked about that guy that you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. They can give us a presentation on it.
Yeah, Alan Caldwell pulled back, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, with Pool Pack, because we're a member of Pool Pack, we can be involved in that, getting that money.
Thank you, Lori. Does anybody else have any committee reports? Okay, moving on to item J, future agenda items. Is there anything anybody on the board would like to see on the agenda?
Yeah, I want to see Rob in the room. He comes on Zoom, we pay him a lot of money, he's changing our format, we weren't informed. I don't think I'm the only one that's upset about it. Board reports are made for board reports to have a conversation. So I'm not happy. I think it's ridiculous that it was just sprung on us. It's inappropriate. Every other board in the county and across the state has the same conversations. If he knows open meeting law, he needs to show up and have a conversation with us before he does this. I have yet to see him.
I'll second every bit of that.
We had a huge
100%.
meeting in December. He got on Zoom. Our last meeting when he should have been in this room, he was on Zoom. We pay him thousands of dollars. He can drive to Winnemucca. And if you're gonna spring something on us, you better tell us ahead of time.
And as board president, you probably should have communicated that as well.
100% agree.
Yeah, that was a crappy deal.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to see on the agenda?
Well, clearly you need to put the 4-day school
Yeah, I
week.
was gonna say we probably need to put some.
I
on that.
have one suggestion. On the boundaries for this move, probably ought to get those out ASAP.
Yeah, they'll be on there.
Parents know where their children are going.
I need to get distance ed on there for, potential change offenders.
You said distance ed.
Thank you. Can't hear.
Sorry. We're looking into options for, other than Pearson.
Also, we're gonna keep grammar school on our agenda every meeting, correct?
Every meeting.
Every single meeting?
Yeah, we don't want much updates next time, but I can keep it on there for sure.
Okay. That's what we're supposed to be talking about right now, is agenda stuff.
Apparently.
Okay, does anybody have anything further? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and seconded, all those in favor?
When's the contract up? Because we have other people in our county that can do a lawn, direct our board and show others. I'd like to know that answer.
See you, Nicole.
Thanks.
It'll change, but it's whatever.
That made me feel
I'm not worried.
Oh my God. Well, she started, I guess. Yeah,
Are you done with your candy?
yeah.
I didn't realize I didn't turn the recording on, that little girl did, that was just requested.
Yeah, that's right.
I figured that was, but I couldn't hear her, she was talking